Tonight, before we begin, I'd just like to, just have a moment of silence. I'd just like to, in our thoughts today, just remember the people in Texas, what they're going through, and the poor, what I heard today, 30,000 people could be out home, so let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers tonight and tomorrow and as we go on. Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, do the roll call for the City Council meeting of August 28th, 2017.
We meet next.
Councilor Tontar.
Present.
Councilor Vogel.
Present.
Councilor Zede.
Present.
Councilor Cameron.
Here.
Councilor Connell.
Present.
Councilor Cronin.
Present.
Councilor Devlin.
Present.
Councilor Earls.
Present.
Councilor Agaman.
Here.
Councilor Junta.
Present.
Council President O'Brien.
Here.
We are all present and accounted for, Mr. President.
Late file items?
There are 6 on your desks. Beginning with number 1, it's a communication item. Would have been in the packet. It's Order 43 regarding the West End taking. Second late file is Communication 104, which is a letter from the Chamber regarding the parking. Communication late file number 3 is a Communication 105 regarding the Plinko board from last meeting. Fourth is a Communication 106 regarding the garage forecast, numbers from the Director of Finance. Number 5 is Order 50, which really has 2 parts, emergency preamble and the order itself with respect to the height restrictions on the garage. And lastly, we have Communication 107, which is a block party to be held September 9th, I believe it is,
16th.
and it's on Warren Street.
Motion to waive the rules and accept the late file items.
Second.
Councilor Zede.
For those who are attending, I'd just like to know what we're doing now. So these are documents we received today that typically are supposed to be put in a week before the council meeting. And what we're doing right now is just waiving our rules to accept them, including one that's some garage financials that were submitted to councilors at 3 p.m. today. I'll be voting for this because it's customary here that we accept late files, but I just want people to understand what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You want public comment?
Good evening. My
I
name is...
haven't introduced you yet.
Oh, sorry.
My show, not yours, okay? We have about 64 people to talk, so public comment is usually 20 minutes. So I'll limit people to 1 minute each. You have 1 minute, and then sit down. When your time's up, I'll tell you time's up. So if it's rude, I'm sorry, but we have to listen to everybody.
My name is Andrew Sidford.
Sidford.
I live at 42 Washington Street in Newburyport. I have been living and working as a registered architect in Newburyport for approximately 28 years. In addition to studying architecture in graduate school, I have studied city design and am currently a member of the NRA, Newburyport Redevelopment Authority, that is. In my opinion, Newburyport is a unique city due to its architecture, quality, and connectedness of public spaces, and its pedestrian scale. While this pedestrian scale contributes to the special experience of living in Newburyport and the sense of a community, it does come at a cost. Specifically, what makes it easy for us to walk through and around our city and feel connected to our community does make it impossible to provide what modern planners and some people would prefer in terms of quantity of parking spaces and proximity of that parking to our homes and businesses. I am here to urge that we resist the temptation of larger open parking lots, such as the Central Waterfront, as they harm the dense fabric of our pedestrian city. As other similar small cities such as Portsmouth have shown, it is possible to preserve unique pedestrian scale density while accommodating growth and at the same time providing the necessary parking. On the first NRA I served
Time's
on...
up, thank you.
Get to the point.
Andrew Port?
Thank you. As Director of Planning and Development, I offer my recommendation on the proposed parking garage. The primary benefit of this downtown parking project is to reduce parking on the central waterfront and our overall parking footprint for a more pedestrian-friendly experience. We cannot expect to expand the central waterfront park with first relocating existing parking that downtown businesses and our summer festivals rely upon. Federal and state funds for the garage will subsidize the creation of our larger park. Visitors parking downtown, not property taxes, will cover the remaining costs. There is an important relationship between this parking garage and previous commitments by council members to dissolve the NRA and expand the waterfront park. Merely constructing a surface parking lot on the Tecumseh Street site is not cost-effective at over $3 million. A roughly 55-space lot, not 90 to 100 as others have suggested, would fail to compensate for spaces lost on the central waterfront, at least 150. Walking away from $6.5 million in outside funding for a garage, which makes park expansion possible in the first place, would be a short-sighted acceptance of the status quo for our waterfront, dirt parking lots. I hope you keep these considerations in mind as you vote this evening. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Hazen Mahmood?
Hasan Mahmood, 52A Fair Road. President O'Brien and Honorable Councilman, I'm asking you to turn down the bond and uphold the vote. For one main reason, we have been misled from the beginning about this garage and we never had facts. In fact, I asked under public law for all documents not on the web. The mayor herself, sitting here on the 2nd of August, said everything on the website. When I asked, they wanted $4,100 for 14,000 pages. So, is that misleading or not? Second, the mayor keeps pushing everybody, hurry up, we need to sign on it. But 2 weeks ago, she delayed it. I've been asking, when is the deadline for these grants? They've been told, we're gonna lose it. Mostly that every study has been flawed. The first study, they told the consultant to study shoulder months, not the peak months for the traffic to show no impact. The second one by NAD, they did not study, although it was 24 hours monitoring, they said we don't have numbers when the boat or the bridge was open. Lastly, we're getting a pollution study that the council asked for. The mayor gives analysis that is flawed. It's analyzed for rural area. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Flaherty?
Sean Flaherty, 3 Summit Place. Been a resident of Newburyport for about 30 years. I come before you tonight to ask you to do not support the bond for the garage at this time. I was at the subcommittee meeting in here a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, and there were a number of excellent questions by some counselors that didn't have, that I felt, appropriate answers or good answers. So I ask you not to vote for the bond. I would ask you to let the people vote. I don't know what the fear is to let people vote. Direct democracy, let's do it. Lastly, I was talking with some abutters to the proposed garage. And even though there might have been 4 meetings, I was told that they're still not being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Puffer?
Hello. I'm going to cut my speech in half. My name is Robert Puffer, and thank you for letting me talk about tonight's vote. I think the main goals we are talking about tonight are twofold. 1, provide an open waterfront, and 2, increase parking downtown, especially summertime and during town events. In my opinion, targeted surface lots can potentially provide our city additional parking we need, and the land swap we are all wanting to provide an open space on the waterfront. A surface loss solution versus a garage will also provide the town some flexibility down the road if needed. This year, our taxes have gone up, and it's understandable. What I think is not proven is spending a huge amount of money of taxpayer dollars on the garage and its ongoing maintenance and the associated salaries when the option of a targeted surface parking lots could bring the same benefit at a much lower cost. In conclusion, the mayor's blog recently publicly acknowledged open surface lots versus a parking garage one business day before this vote, provided potentially misleading gross versus net parking spot cost figures without any sort of backing, and opened up new questions around the
Time's up.
time.
Thank you. Bonnie Preston?
Good evening. I've shared my thoughts with all of you, so I'll be as concise as possible. I urge you to accept the bond tonight. We need to move the parking off the waterfront. To do that, we need a garage in downtown. This will be a vast improvement to a gateway site as you enter Newburyport, and this will help with the traffic in Market Square. I urge all of you to accept the bond tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony O'Brien?
Hi, my name is Tammy O'Brien. I'm a resident of Newburyport and a small business owner. I've also been a member of the North of Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau for 10 years, on the board of directors for the last 4 years, and on the executive board this year. I'm here tonight to talk about the economic impact the parking garage will have on our city via tourism. First and foremost, having the garage itself will bring tourists. These tourists will pay the fees that will help offset the garage at no cost to me. The first thing those tourists will see upon leaving the garage will be all the small businesses right in front of them. Small businesses that will no doubt reap the benefits for years to come by being the first place they see when entering our city. Prime real estate. They'll exit this garage to shop, dine, and find entertainment that feeds our economy and supports our local businesses. And because we all know locals can't do it alone, it's not reasonable to think that we locals can keep our restaurants and retailers afloat year-round. We need our city to be a destination that keeps the heart of our city beating. For all those residents who say, I don't go downtown, I say this: do you have children, grandchildren, friends, neighbors that utilize the schools, the senior center, play sports, Anna Jake's Hospital? All of these organizations frequently descend upon our downtown restaurants and retailers year-round to ask for donations to support our local sports teams, the NEF, Newburyport Youth Services, PTO, Yankee Homecoming. I could go on and on. If they cannot survive because we cannot support them, and we're opposed to the parking garage, that'll bring tourist dollars needed to support them year-round because of...
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zachary Ellis? Elias, I'm sorry.
I'll be speaking on behalf of my father tonight, Claude Elias. Esteemed city councilors, I would have liked to be here with you in person today, but I am on business in Syracuse, New York, so I will be speaking on his behalf. For the past 9 winters, I've owned and operated Oregano Pizzeria on Pleasant Street in the heart of downtown. During the past 9 years, we have only enjoyed one winter when the snow has failed to clog our streets and parking lots. The remaining 8 years have ranged from a huge inconvenience to an absolute calamity and disaster. It is to be expected that our business slows down in the winter, but it was not anticipated that every time we have a snowfall, we shut down our business, not just for that particular snow day, but for the following 2 or 3 days as well. In spite of the admirable effort of the city administrators and DPW workers, there just is not enough parking spots for customers to come down to the town. All municipal lots are full, snowbanks are choking the streets, and as a result, customers stay away. For the past 9 winters, my wife and I, as family owners of a local establishment, made the decision that regardless of the fact that we will be operating at a loss, we decided to remain open on these snow-filled days in order to give our employees the opportunity to earn their weekly income, since most of them do live paycheck to paycheck. Laura and I could take the hit, but they can't. We held on for the past 9 years, fully expecting that there will come a time whereby there'll be a garage for residents and patrons alike to be able to park the cars off the street of downtown. We, for the past 9 years, have been asking our employees to fan out to park their cars.
Thank you. Time's up. Thank you. Byron Lane?
Good evening. I just wanted to come down. I'm sure some of you I know personally, some of you see me on Facebook, we interact. I'm against this right now. I'm not against more parking in town. I don't think that the structure that's being proposed for the dollar amount per spot makes any sense whatsoever. You've got residents who need sidewalks, things all around town. You want to put money in the schools. You're spending a lot of money right now on a whim. I mean, it's really like you build it, they'll come, maybe. I know you drive past that garage, I'll drive right past, I'll go to park downtown. I'll find a spot. So I don't see how the numbers make sense to spend this amount of money. I mean, there's a better way, I'm sure. I mean, let's just face it, it's too small of a garage, right? So what I'm asking you is just vote no, take some time, figure out some alternative solutions here. So that's where I stand. Hope you all vote no. Thanks.
Thank you. Ginny Raimo?
Hi, Ginny Ramo. I live on Toppins Lane. I'm also a 29-year business owner here in Newburyport. I own commercial property. I'm one of the largest abutters to the proposed garage. And I am hoping you vote no. I, as a business owner, have figured out ways over 29 years to grow my business without creating additional parking. The same 24 spaces sit in front of my business that sat there 29 years ago. There are ways to get creative, and I think the city is very short-sighted in building a garage that will devastate a neighborhood, certainly of the people who live there, and many of the businesses that use the on-street parking throughout the streets surrounding the garage. So I ask you to vote no.
Thank you. Jenny Donahue?
Good evening, Council President and Councilors. Jenny Donahue here, 18 Cherry Street. You're going to hear a lot of perspectives tonight, and I don't need to digress on all of those, but the one perspective I am going to bring up, because it's not going to be mentioned, is that parking structures such as the proposed garage, they are very unconducive to the most vulnerable population in our city, and that is why I am opposed to such a structure. I do think there are other solutions, like others have mentioned. I ask you all to really consider heavily how this is going to affect every resident in the city and visitors alike. So please, I ask you to reconsider and to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeannie, 8 Woodman Way.
I'm Jean Duffley.
Yep.
6 Woodman Way. I'm asking the councilors to vote no on the garage. I've shared a multitude of reasons with every one of you, either directly via email or in person or in letters to the editor. In addition to that, the mayor has now just released an extensive amount of new financial and other information on her city blog just a few days ago. The council certainly will not have had time to read and absorb and analyze all of that information. Couldn't possibly have. Never mind, the residents have certainly not had time to read it all and analyze it and respond. There has been no response time, and yet you are expected to vote for this garage. That is not right. And then I hear that new information, new financial garage information has just been released today, and yet you are still expected to vote on this garage now. So I ask you not to vote for the garage. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Rogo.
Laurel Grove, 22 Beacon Ave. I could stand up here all night and tell you why I say no to this garage, but I just want to say this. There have been other alternatives offered as opposed to building a garage that are more eco-friendly, more financially equitable to the city and to the residents. And I think they should really be seriously considered before we take on such a major undertaking that can affect us both health-wise and economically-wise. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that Don from 7 Fruit Street?
Don Paulus, 7 Fruit Street. Asking you to vote against the garage. People in the city have a right to say something on this. It's such a divisive issue. To deny them that right would be wrong, and it would speak volumes about the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat Daniels?
Patricia Daniels, 234 Low Street, Newburyport. I believe this is one of the most important votes that the City Council will take. I believe Newburyport is at a crossroads in development. I worry that we will not have the funding to sustain this garage and that generations to come will be saddled with a debt that they're not able to pay. I urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Hewlett.
Good evening, councilors. As chair of the NRA, I encourage you to support the parking garage funding. Why? The NRA has agreed with the public sentiment that 2 large gravel parking lots are not the highest and best use and not a permanent solution for parking in the center of our city. We have been working diligently over the past few years with the City Council's Ad Hoc Waterfront Committee, the Mayor's Office, the Waterfront Trust, and the Custom House Maritime Museum on an expanded, dynamic, self-sustaining park. Next month, we hope to issue a memorandum of understanding that lays out a vision for the future of ownership and financial roadmap. With your help and that of stakeholders, we have made great strides and have a unique opportunity before us. However, we need the city to uphold its end of the agreement to allow us to remove a substantial amount of parking off the central waterfront. Inaction could jeopardize the momentum at hand and leave us in limbo into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Salemi.
Tom Salemi, 16 Ting Street. As former chair of the Newburyport Redevelopment Authority, I heard from many of you that the public wanted to remove parking from the dirt lots and expand the park. The NRA did listen. We sat with many of you in this room to lay out a plan to remove parking from the waterfront lots. The NRA and the Waterfront Trust are doing their part to ensure that we have a waterfront that we can even be prouder of, but the plan will fall apart if there's no place to put the cars. The garage was always part of the plan. This is what many of you told me that people wanted. If this garage isn't approved, I believe we're guaranteed to be looking at a sea of parked cars for many years to come. And if that happens, I think the responsibility will fall not with the NRA, where it's been placed for many years, but it's going to fall with the city in this body. So please be the leaders who can put an end to the dirt lots in the waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali Santa, 39 Forester. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ally Santalasi, 39 Forester Street. And I urge you, councilors, to please vote no on the garage. I think at this late date, the information has been questionable at best. The sources cited for most of the studies haven't been on target. And I think we need clearer definitions of everything, including budget numbers, before we can understand what we're getting into as a city, as a people, and as a government. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Elizabeth Heath.
Hi, Elizabeth Heath, 25 Oak Street. You've heard all the arguments pro and con. I won't take up any time with that, but I'd like to encourage you to vote no on the garage. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindy Lanfear.
Lindy Lanfear, 347 High Street in Newburyport. I'm here this evening to encourage you all to not vote for the garage. Thank you.
Marion Levy.
Marion Layton Levy, 323 Merrimack Street. And I'm here to speak in support of the parking garage. I hope you will vote yes for the bond. As a member of the NRA and as a 32-year resident of the city, I think it's very important for the city's growth and development. I think it will be great for the downtown, and I think it's essential for the completion of the waterfront park. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara Roach.
Barbara Roach, 5 East Boylston Street. I've been a resident for over 36 years here in Newburyport, and I'm not supportive of the location of the garage that you're proposing. I think there's a need, but I think there is a better way of finding another location outside of the city limits. I think you've got a potentially bad parking problem by means of access to the garage, and then the Four Corners. I'm worried, I assume you're going to have lights at the four where Route 1 comes and Merrimack Street comes. I'm worried about that. It's bad as it is. So garage, if any other location, maybe on the outskirts, further in the industrial park, would be more conducive. Not at the location it is. I hope you vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Greg Clements.
Ray Clements, 117 State Street. For the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've been reading that the city council is corrupt. They're owned by CARP. I've been reading that the city council is incompetent. They can't manage this program, and it's going to be tremendous cost overruns. I've been reading that the city council doesn't care about the citizens of this town. Now, I got to tell you, everyone that has been writing that is probably here tonight. You know who's not here tonight? The thousands and thousands of people that vote for you guys, like what you do, and want to see this garage passed. I am one of those people. You have worked incredibly hard to get this far. Don't get a case of the wobblies now. This is your opportunity to really move this forward. And I'm for the garage. Everyone I know is for the garage. And not to mention, you procured $6.5 million to finance this garage. You guys should be thrilled with this deal. Please move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Camille Garrow. Camille Garrow.
Camille Garrow, 4B Greenleaf Street. I moved here 5 years ago, and I know that's considered a newbie, and I mean no disrespect to all of you residents that have been here so much longer, but upon my arrival here, I was extremely eager to get to talk to everybody in town through networking, joining chamber ambassadorship, and all kinds of organizations. And I chatted a lot about what they would like to see and how they felt, just to get a pulse of the city. What I overwhelmingly heard 100% of the time from vendors, from visitors, from restaurant owners, from people that go to the restaurants, that we need more parking. Please vote for the parking garage. To me, it's just become so evident. I read all about the past history, decades trying to get to this point, and I too feel that it would be a shame to turn down the $6.5 million that we have so eagerly had for this. And I think that we need it. It's at a beautiful location on the outskirts of the city. I live on Greenleaf across from a firehouse near CVS. I'm wondering what happened when that was trying to get into town, I think in 1978. But it's been fine. I think people are very respectful of other people's spaces, and we're only growing. We're not getting smaller. So please vote yes.
Michael Sales.
Michael Sales, 6 Fruit Street. I'm a bicyclist. I bicycle several times a week to Amesbury. On Friday, the line of jammed up cars extended from State to Boardman Street. Where are those cars going to go? They're going to go to the waterfront lots. I was told by an elected opponent to this garage that there is no relationship between the garage and our beautiful waterfront. I must tell you, I consider that to be an insult to my intelligence, to think that there is no such a relationship. I was told that the parking problem, I am being told, and being told tonight, that the parking problem will be solved someday. No. The waterfront park ought to be a priority for the city of Newburyport and for everybody in this room. And we should be voting on this proposal, yes. This has been under study for 20 years. Many people in this room have been part of that study. You cannot have a situation in our city where everything is blocked because of the power of different constituency groups. We know what we're supposed to do. We've been advised about this repeatedly. Let's move ahead.
Ethan Manning.
Good evening, councilors. Ethan Manning, 31 Howard Street, Finance Director. I'm here tonight speaking in favor of the garage. It is a long-term investment for the city, which will pay dividends for taxpayers over time, in terms of added local revenue and finally providing a means to address the dirt lots on the waterfront. We've done a number of different projections for the parking program, which show that there is indeed capacity to service the operations, maintenance, and debt service of the proposed facility from paid parking revenue. Most recent projections were distributed on Thursday and again today with minor adjustments as requested. And we continue to do more and more projections, but it gets to a point where you have to ask yourself the question, is the garage beneficial for the long-term well-being of our community, and do we have the tools to make our parking program financially successful? The city of Portsmouth turns back $5 million per year in parking revenue to its general fund to support city operations and schools. As we've seen over the past decade, we can no longer rely on state and federal aid to run our city, despite being very fortunate to receive funding for this project. We are more reliant on local revenue sources than ever. Creating a more optimal parking system with a garage component, despite the initial expense, can benefit people who visit here, people who work here, and most importantly, people who live and pay taxes here.
Steve Hines.
Good evening, Steve Hines, Chairman of the Newburyport Waterfront Trust. I'd like to state that the Newburyport Waterfront Trust voted in support of the parking garage at our last meeting. The Waterfront Trust, along with city councilors and the ad hoc committee, the NRA, the original settlers of the Waterfront Trust, and the mayor's office have worked hard over the last 18 months to come up with a plan that would consolidate ownership of the waterfront and take a substantial amount of parking off the waterfront and enlarge the current park. This plan includes the NRA turning over their property to the Waterfront Trust, the NRA dissolving, the settlers ending their oversight of the trust, and the creation of a new updated trust agreement. The dirt lots have been there long enough. It's time to take the waterfront to the next level. The NRA and the trust have been working together and have a shared vision for an enlarged park managed and controlled by one entity. This will most likely not happen without the parking garage being built. The garage project has been in the works since 2010, and now because a mayoral candidate has made the garage a focal point of his campaign, we're supposed to stop. The residents have had plenty of opportunity to voice their concerns over the years. We're at the goal line with this, and you shouldn't be afraid to take the ball into the end zone with this project. It would be a shame to lose out and not improve the city's crown jewel, the waterfront and downtown area. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Foot, 58 Merrimack.
Jamie Ferris, 58 Merrimack. I've been a resident here for 10 years, and I just feel that as it's being proposed now, that I would ask you to vote no on the garage. Thank you.
Susan Crawford.
Hello, Susan Crawford, 52 Temple Street. I'd ask that you not get weak in the knees as well. I'll echo sentiments that have already been expressed, but do it in person. I've emailed most of you here, I believe. You know, let's make our downtown easier to visit for residents, for tourists, certainly for our business owners. Let's make waterfront expansion possible, for God's sakes. Let's get some of these cars off of the waterfront. Coveted winter parking, this garage will support. I think the location, while there's always going to be folks that will contend it's not the perfect location, but I think it's fairly centrally located, certainly within walking distance, and let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. The $6.5 million in state and federal, my God, that's like turning down your 401k matching funds. Let's not lose that money. And I think there's been reasonable due diligence on the financials. So I'd ask that you please support the garage. Thank you.
Gregory Chason?
Greg Chason.
Doug Chason here? Wilbur Shuck? Cenk?
Wilbur Shank, 1 Beck Street. I'm also a member of the Waterfront Trust. Whether we like it or not, the consolidation of the ownership and the desired expansion of the waterfront park are tied to the construction of a parking garage. It will be next to impossible to take the necessary spaces off the waterfront that are needed for the park expansion if there is not a clear place for them to go. The ad hoc committee of the City Council, the NRA, the Waterfront Trust, the settlers, the cows, the mayor's office, many others have worked hard to get us to the point where we are right now on waterfront consolidation. Everyone has made compromises. We are ready. The time is right. The finances are right. Please let's take this opportunity to move ahead by voting yes tonight for the garage. Thank you.
Brett Lefebvre?
Hi, Brett Lefebvre, 58 Merrimack. I urge the councilors to vote no on the garage. I think that there are perhaps other solutions. We look at Rockport and some of the other communities that can move cars further away from the downtown area instead of taking over a valuable area, use it for something else, look at trolleys to bring people in at peak times. Thank you.
Thank you. Trudy Lefebvre?
Trudy Lefebvre, 58 Merrimack. I urge the councilman to vote no for the garage. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Brennan?
Ed Brennan, 23 Alberta Avenue. I initially was in favor of this, I thought, but as time has evolved, I've kind of reached a conclusion that it may not be a financially viable thing. Design and construction costs have risen and continue to rise. There's going to be maintenance costs and staffing costs, and now we hear, or lately I've heard that the garage is going to be open 24 hours a day. I think it would be better to just have a surface lot there. As time evolves, if we need more, we could get more surface parking in other locations. I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Bixby?
Hi. I've had a business in town for 25 years, and there's been the talk about a parking garage for at least that long. We need more parking. I mean, I love the waterfront, and I don't want anything to happen at the detriment of the waterfront, but we need more parking to keep a vibrant downtown, so I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie Sontag?
Bonnie Sontag, 10 Upland Road. I'm going to speak to you as a member of the Planning Board on one issue in particular, and that is the idea that possibly a surface lot could be placed in the same area where the garage is now being proposed at 80 or so spaces. Once that is proposed, it has to come to the Planning Board for site plan review. And there are criteria in there that include landscaping that would probably cut it down by at least 20 or 30 spaces. So we're looking at the possibility of maybe only 55 spaces there in a surface lot compared to 207 for a garage. I urge you to vote to bond for the garage. The citizens of Newburyport rejected surface parking across the downtown at urban renewal time. We should reject it now. Please vote yes to bond for the garage. Thank you.
Like Laura Wolf, 87 High Street.
Hi, I'm Laura Wolf. I'm at 87 High Street. I own 2 businesses in town, and I just urge you, please, to vote for this parking garage. We need it so badly. You all have worked so hard to get where we are, and you're just going to stop it now, I think, is ridiculous. I've worked really hard in building a couple of restaurants in town. Yeah, you know what? Well, first of all, most of the funding is coming from the feds and the state. The part that maybe we have to put up now is going to be reciprocated back or come back with all of the fees. I want to come back 10 years from now and say, oh my gosh, we have $5 million extra in our coffers because of the parking garage, and be able to start fighting for, better schools or better senior centers or, doing something else. Right now, all the tourists are clogging up the streets. I sometimes have a hard time getting in and out of my own driveway because there's so many cars parked. It's just people that think that if we don't do the parking garage, they won't come is ridiculous. People are coming to this town. We've made it beautiful. Going downtown is like going to this beautiful wedding venue, but then the bride shows up in burlap. Those parking lots are ugly. So we really do need to make this town right, and by getting a parking garage, it's really going to help. Thank you.
Rob Matthews.
Hi, Rob Matthews from 40 Storybook Drive. I've lived in Newburyport for 15 years. I work for a technology parking company, believe it or not. I visited 170 cities in the United States the last 3 years, talking to them about urban planning and parking. And it's hard to see what we're doing here when I look at the rest of the United States. I think we can do better. I hear a couple of quick objections. One is for me, it's about aesthetics. Anybody looking at that front can see that parking spaces don't belong there. People visit me from Europe, all over the United States. One of the first questions they always ask is, what is that parking lot doing there? I've heard economics come up. People are worried about debt service on this parking garage. We're not even talking about charging market prices. Portsmouth is doing just fine with their parking. We're doing well with our own parking, our own lots. This parking is not going to be threatened by economics. I urge yes on the garage. Thank you.
John Moynihan.
My name is John Moynihan. I'm the Executive Director of the Firehouse Center for the Arts, and I urge that the City Council vote yes on the parking garage. One of the biggest complaints that I hear day in and day out is parking, not only from our constituents and people who come to see our shows, but also all of our volunteers who come in and work our shows and that make it what we do possible. Not only that, every major city has the opportunity to make a beautiful park. Boston Commons, Central Park, Prescott Park in Portsmouth are staples of the city. And I think right now, with everything that's going on with Waterfront Park and the ability and the way everyone's working together, we have a really great opportunity to make a beautiful park right on the Merrimack River, something that can rival any of the other great parks that we have throughout the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Strauss.
Mike Strauss, 56 Federal Street. I'm also chair of the Newburyport Energy Advisory Committee. Mr. President, city councilors, recently a group of concerned citizens approached the mayor requesting the city create a transportation committee to look at reducing our carbon footprint from transportation into, out of, and through the city while increasing walkability and bikeability. As you've heard from the mayor, the Energy Advisory Committee, at her recommendation, has formed a transportation subcommittee that will be looking at all of the strategies outlined in the Clean Energy Roadmap and Master Plan to address these. parking and public transportation are key components of that mission. Expanding the waterfront park will remove nearly 100 parking spots from the waterfront. This, coupled with the expansion of downtown restaurants and increased popularity of the city as a destination, the Energy Advisory Committee is in favor of plans that will encourage public transportation and enables those with cars to quickly find parking. Having a parking garage near the entrance of the downtown area, combined with other traffic management plans such as a review of street parking regulations, will reduce the need for so many private vehicles in the dense downtown area, in addition to reducing emissions. Parking the cars vertically reduces the footprint of parking, opening up more spaces for other uses. Thank you. We urge a vote in favor of the garage.
David Strand.
Members of the council and members of the public, thank you all for being here. I appreciate all that we all have put into this. This is not just a council vote tonight. This is something that we have put our time, our hearts, and energy into, and I do want to respect the councilors. You've put a particular amount of due diligence into this and have gotten a lot of information you've had to digest, and sometimes just a short period of time. But there's been a lot of discussion about the numbers. And there's one major number that I want to draw attention to, and that is that this parking garage has been evaluated purely on the fact that it needs to pay for itself by how many cars we put in it. And I want to speak to you from the point of view, which is that as chairperson of the Chamber of Commerce in this community, we firmly believe that this is a linchpin, not only in getting cars off the waterfront, as many of each and every one of us, all in this room, have all planned to do for years. It is also the linchpin in showing that we have faith in the growth in the economy of this community, that we can do it as a community. We can bring people to this community. We have put $0 into this budget that suggests we can do anything better than our current economic development plan. We're suggesting we will be at stagnation or zero. And that bothers me. I personally have faith we will be skyrocketing when we put this plan together. A plan that we put together. Councilors, Tom, you and I sat on the steering committee together and wrote in several pages of this master plan that this is something this community wants, needs, and has to have. It's time to put this to bed and vote yes. Thank you.
Sally Owen, I think it is.
Hi, I'm Sally Owen. I'm not a Newburyport resident. I'm a Newbury resident for 30 years, but I'm a small business owner downtown. I own the Dragon's Nest toy store on Market Square, and I park on that deplorable dirt lot that is not only deplorable, it is dangerous. I've fallen in the winter. One of my employees has fallen. I tell you, it is a lawsuit waiting to happen. I've had to abandon my car on several occasions in these past winters because I haven't been able to get my car out of the lot. More importantly, as a business owner, I hear almost every day during the summer and in the fall seasons when we get a lot of tourists that people love to come to Newburyport, but they can't stand the parking situation. And I've heard people say, I won't come again because I can't spend the day shopping and having a meal. I'll go to Portsmouth where I can park and stay all day. My car is safe. I don't have to scrape the ice and the snow off the car at the end of the day. We are losing businesses, our business downtown. We are struggling. I've spoken to a lot of merchants. We've had very difficult retail season in the last year or so. Newburyport cannot afford to lose the tourists, and we need more downtown shopping from the residents. And I think the parking garage will really create more of a desire to come to the city. People will be able to spend their time and their dollars here. Newburyport has a vibrant, living history. The waterfront is crucial to letting people understand how important this city is, and the vibrant cultural traditions here.
Thank you.
Please vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Jeanette Isabella.
Jeanette Isabella, 1 Lime Street. I think most all of you know that I'm not in favor of the garage. I am in favor of a garage. I just think this location is wrong, and I think that there are too many questions. I've heard people say that people don't want to come to Newburyport because they can't park. Other people say that imagine coming into this city once we have Waterfront West up, and a garage, it's just going to be a mass of buildings. I don't see why a 55-spot surface parking garage, beautifully landscaped, wouldn't be something that would welcome people into our town much more lovingly than this building and buses. Maybe we should have them, but someplace else. And we've never really tried a shuttle system. It might work. And remember, we're losing 45 of those spots. They're designated for people who are going to commute. So we're really only, well?
Let her talk, please, Mayor.
Oh,
This isn't a
excuse
debate.
me, Mayor. I would never interrupt you.
Let's go. It's not a
Well,
debate.
I guess I'm done.
Thank you. People, this isn't a debate, this is public comment. We've had meetings you could come and talk to. Let the people talk. Let's not be rude to them. Thank you. Jacqueline Bennett?
Good evening. My name is Jacqueline Bennett. I am a business owner in Newburyport. I urge you to please vote no. This particular parking garage it's a wonderful idea to have a parking garage. There is a different location for it. This is not the location for this particular garage. There have been so many accidents. I myself witnessed a horrifying accident where a bicyclist was run over and thrown 20 feet in the air, and there's other locations. And this isn't, Merrimack Street's not really the gateway to Newburyport. The south end is the gateway. The south end is the entrance if you are coming from Boston. So developing in the south end, I think, would be so much wiser. And there wouldn't be this debate. Should we turn down funding from the state? Absolutely no. But we should definitely consider building this someplace else. Please, I urge you to please vote no.
Thank you. Jack Miller?
Good evening. I'm Jack Miller, and I'm a resident of Newburyport for the past 23 years, having lived downtown in the Mercantile Building for a number of years before moving out to Turkey Hill. My wife has been a resident here since the blizzard of '78, and she feels the storm is continuing between the hotel, the parking garage, and the waterfront. We have an opportunity here to resolve two of them. We all, probably majority of us, agree that the waterfront would be best as a park, move the cars off, build a garage. But I don't agree with the location of the garage. The garage location, we're spending $2.1 million, and then some perhaps, to buy a piece of land, and also the fact that there was initial program was 300 cars, and now needs to be reduced to 200 for the site, which I don't disagree for the abutters. I don't understand, we own a piece of property right downtown, the surface lot on Green Street, in which a garage can be constructed there on 3/4 of the parcel of land, and I've never heard or seen any reason why we can't, other than, oh, it was looked into years ago. And that's not good enough for me. They say the church will be undermined. That's crazy. Look what we've done to the Kelly School. They've actually lifted it off the ground and added a whole parking garage underneath. That's preposterous that we should be spending $2.1 million for the lot when we have one. Also, the fact that we'll be taking that lot off the tax roll.
Thank you. Ed Anderson?
Thank you. I'm Ed Anderson. I live on 8 Norman Avenue. Over 2 years ago, I wrote letters that were published in the Daily News complaining about the lack of a vote. We have been allowed to vote on the Bresnahan School, and to me it is just incomprehensible that no one has allowed us to vote on something as large and important as the parking garage. The people who have been talking in support of the garage almost universally fail to mention the abutters, those people who are going to be impacted the most by this. By not permitting the abutters to vote on the garage, you are adding insult to injury
to these people. And I urge all of you and to please let us vote on the parking garage and then vote on the bond. Thank you.
Thank you. John Buzzino. Eleven Cushing Ave. James Ruger.
James Bruger, 4 Savory Street. I'm a 21-year resident of Newburyport, and I'm also a member of the planning board. I'm here to speak favorably for the garage. Since I moved here, one of the 2 top things was that's been on everyone's mind has been the parking in town and the waterfront, and I'd like the city council to move forward with both of those. So I'm for the garage. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Roy.
Jim Roy, 4 Fruit. Everybody knows what I feel about this. I've been on the traffic committee for 30-something years. I was chairman for 10. In 1999, we're here. This is deja vu, doing it all over again. This has been studied to death. It's time to cross the Rubicon, in my opinion. That project, when we submitted it to you then, would have cost $6 million. Now, like it or not, there's going to be a garage in this town. Do you want it now? Do you want it later? Or you never want it at all? That's not going to happen. We are going to have a garage at some point in the history of this city. We could have had it in 1999 for $6 million. Now we're looking at $13 million. If the state ever looks at us again, searching for money, they might give it to us in 10, 15 years. And so then we're going to look at a facility that's going to be $27 million to $30 million. So pay for it now or pay for it later. The other thing I want to say is I've been in contact with several of you, and I got a reply from one of you that he felt that the garage and the waterfront are not linked, that in fact it is sufficient to use the Titcomb Street site as a surface lot and maybe pick up a few other surface lots around to accommodate the spaces that are required to get this park going. I am incredulous to hear an argument like that. My reply would be, if that is true, then why haven't we had a waterfront park 10 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago? It's because we don't have the capacity. If we did, we'd have the park. And the two are linked. So I urge you, please, I know we're within 1 or 2 votes of getting this thing done. To stall it again is almost criminal. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Collins.
Hello, councilors. I'm Jen Collins from 14 Christopher Street, and I am here in favor of the parking garage. There are several reasons. One, from my own personal experience, I am a member of the Custom House Board of Directors, but I am here as a personal resident. I do have a vested interest in a beautiful open park to abut the museum. But from my own perspective, I have noticed that traffic flow would be dramatically increased if we are not taking lefts into dirt parking lots. We would have a more pedestrian-friendly downtown, and we could realize the dream of the open waterfront that has been 40 years in the making. Surface slots will not suffice the 200 spots that we're looking to inevitably remove from the waterfront in order to accommodate this open waterfront concept that has been hard-fought and reached as compromise after 40 years because of the hard work of the Citizens for Open Waterfront and the Open Waterfront Charrette that was held several years ago, where there was citywide consensus that we need to have an open space that is amenable and open to the people. This is a big turning point that we would even get to that point where we agree with that, where the NRA is looking to dissolve, the waterfront is trust is looking to take over this land, and the city is looking to divest their interests. This is a huge turning point for us, and right now what I'm seeing is that the councilors who supported the open waterfront originally are now the biggest obstacles to this happening, despite the fact that there have been multiple planning studies conducted. There's a financial model that completely does work for this to happen, and there's ample grant funding, which is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that may not come back to us for another 10 years. Councilors opposing using the garage or approving the garage, I see this as looking as a vote in opposition
time's
of the
up. Thank you.
current-
Thank you.
Okay, well, that's what I have to say. Vote for it.
John Green.
Love being short. Mr. President, City Councilors, my name is John Green. I live on 12 Finnegan Way. I want to start out by saying I've worked with many of you and have a respect for all of you, no matter how this vote occurs. My rusty degree in political science tells me that there's a process that got us here tonight, and I'm very confused as to what happened to that process. I think I voted for a representative government here, and that falls on all of you. But it's years of planning that took us to tonight, and all of a sudden we've reached this point. The other confusion I have is ballot questions at this hour. This is not a debt exclusion to answer someone else's question. You vote on debt exclusions. This is just an opinion ballot. I served on the Senior Center Planning Committee. There was a lot of opposition there too. How did that work out? That's one of the most used venues in this city, and it's wonderful. I wrote a master's paper many decades ago with Byron Matthews comparing the development of Newburyport to Salem's redevelopment. And I'm going to tell you, those guys had vision. Here, how did that work out? They had a long-term plan. I got some questions I want considered. What's the cost to the taxpayers, not grants, to the taxpayers if this thing is voted down right now, tonight? What do we owe back? Someone mentioned this. What are our chances of ever getting a future grant if we send this thing away? And what would it cost us to get it back again, I think is something you all could consider. If anyone here shows me a better alternate vision, like the vision of years ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Cutter.
Jeff Cutter, 26 North Atkinson Street. Council President, councilors. As a concerned taxpayer, I ask you, please vote no on order number 45, parking garage bond, as it stands this evening. Thank you.
Liam McGovern.
Hi, Lee McGavran, 21 Marlborough Street. I am a planning board member, and I've been practicing architecture in Newburyport for over 15 years. I am in full support of this garage. It's been very carefully vetted. It's very clear to me that if you vote it down, that we will be here in a few years again, considering the same exact issue. I think the city is getting kind of tired. It wears one down to invest a lot of time and effort in these, only to be fighting the same fight again a few years down the road. The location is good, and the architecture is good. Please pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dana Hooper.
Dana Hooper, 25 Marlborough Street. I'm going to be very brief. You all know the facts, and I'm going to talk about leadership. This has been going on for not 10 years, as some have said, not 20 years, almost 40 years. We've been talking about the waterfront and all of the issues of parking. Get this done. Have a vision. Be leaders in this city. We need you to be leaders. We want you to be leaders, and that's why we voted for you. Thank you. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Juliet Alcina.
Good evening. I'm Juliet Alcina, 42 High Street. I'm just briefly going to say that I'm fully supporting the garage, and I hope that you all will too. And I look forward to celebrating in our beautiful new park with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Shand.
Street. I'm here to say I support the parking garage because it's a step in the right direction for our open waterfront. If the parking is removed from the waterfront without a suitable replacement, the residents in the surrounding areas will still be dealing with visitors coming into our town, not finding parking downtown, and parking on our residential streets. Enough. Thank you. Support the parking garage.
Thank you. Paul Acquavilla. No, what is it? Sorry.
Evening, 62 Bromfield Street. I think we're all for an expanded waterfront park, and I think most of us will agree we need a lot more parking. 50 spots isn't enough. 100 spots isn't enough. 200 probably gets us a good way of the way. I mean, we have to plan for the removal of the parking spots on the parking lot on the waterfront. We have to think about growth. Okay, and the fact is we're already short parking spots, so we need parking. We need more than 50, we need more than 100. And so the question is, how do we do it the most cost-effective way? And I think, as people have said, for decades we've been studying this, and we luckily have a $6.5 million grant to help us along that way, and clearly this is the most cost-effective way to get to the number we need. If you had to do that with surface lots, you would have to buy 4 times the amount of land. That's right there is way more than what we're going to spend on this. Not to mention the time it's going to take to get everyone on board and start all over again. So we all want it. I think we can come together on this. I hope we all come together on this tonight and vote in favor and build what we all want, which is that beautiful waterfront expanded park. Thank you.
Pam Ketchum.
Hello, Pam Ketchum, 15 Washington Street. Well, here we are again. You're being asked to make a major decision without all the facts and information needed and promised. For the March 2016 resolution, agreements with the MVRTA regarding the financing, ownership, leasing, management, operation, and maintenance of the project were due August 1st, 2016. These agreements have not been made available, so we don't know the specifics of what is involved in the operation, nor the costs. And we don't know what other restrictions the city may be bound to, such as the 45 available spaces. No cost estimates have been done for the city to run the garage, no cost estimates have been done for the maintenance of the garage, and no cost estimates have been presented for the security for those in and in the area around the garage. It is only recently that we became aware of the MVRTA requirement that 45 spaces needed to be made available, and we still don't know what that means. It has not been defined. Everyone has an idea of what they think or would like it to mean, but that is not relevant. What does it actually mean legally? The city hasn't even inquired what it means for other MVRTA garages. At the end of the day, though, it means whatever it is defined in our executed agreements with the MVRTA. The idea that we would consider moving forward without defining this is incredible. The city's financial estimates are built upon the use of all spaces, no restrictions. I urge you to vote no on the bond order for the proposed garage.
Thank you. Ken Ketchum?
1 minute.
Ken Ketchum?
Good evening. Ken Ketchum, 15 Washington Street, Newburyport. My comments are more focused on process. Regarding the garage, to me, it's incredulous that taxpayer money or any money can be committed to a project without having final bids. That alone deserves a no vote. But understanding now that there's a procedural issue requiring a bond before bids can be sought, you still have other reasons to vote no. These include the fact that we'll all likely be back here for more money when the bids come back 10 to 30% higher than the current projections, the lack of a comprehensive traffic study with recommendations for the area around the proposed site, the most dangerous intersection in the city. The study was supposed to be completed 1 year ago, and I understand that our expert has just been hired. The questions about the reserve status Pam mentioned, the lack of both an operating plan for the garage and a maintenance plan. After the agreement to move this project forward with a smaller garage footprint in 2016, March of 2016, there was a resolution that was supposed to make the planning for the garage more transparent, collaborative, and efficient. I would say that effort has failed in a big way. In closing, I urge you to vote no for this bond.
Thank you. Can't read the writing, 85 Prospect Street. Looks like Israeli. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Amr Ibrahim from 85 Prospect Street, and I'm here today to support the parking facility here. I think we all realize the importance of transportation and infrastructure these days, and we've seen our nation's infrastructure crumble in front of our eyes here, and I think this is an opportunity to build up our local infrastructure and support local transportation. A parking facility that integrates motor vehicles, which fortunately or unfortunately are a necessary part of our daily transportation, along with the MVRTA buses, I think is a step in the right direction. You look at a lot of small cities throughout Europe, you look at Portsmouth, you look at Salem, you look at Haverhill, they've successfully been able to do this. I think a parking facility like this would get cars off the waterfront lots, would allow us to open up that lot, to open up green space, this waterfront park that we've all dreamed of since the beginning of time, and also affect public safety in making a designated central area where people coming to visit the city can find a parking spot without going from lot to lot, reading signs saying, oh, this is resident only. Oh, here I can park until this time, but I can't use my sticker here, and creates more traffic problems and issues for pedestrians. I think based on all these issues and the $6.5 million bond that I stand here in support of this facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Boyd Hancock, 4 Tilton Street. I agree with the wise words of many people here tonight, particularly Tammy O'Brien, Claude Elias, and John Green. I remember when this current location was proposed, and some said it was too far from the center of town, and now some suggest the garage be moved even further from town. There's money on the table, the design is attractive, you've discussed and examined the topic extensively for years. Now's the time to please vote yes. Please do not ignore $6.5 million that are on the table, dollars that taxpayers are not responsible for. Expand our beautiful green space and relocate the spaces to the proposed garage.
Thank you. Rob Germanaro.
Good evening, City Council President O'Brien, members of the City Council, City Clerk Jones. Rob Germanaro, 2 Ashland Street. I'm a 50-year native son of the city of Newburyport. I believe the garage is a bad idea. There's too many unknowns and what ifs going forward. And to me, it's going to be the start of destroying the historic character of Newburyport, especially when the NED project moves forward, which it will. There will be some sort of development on that property. It's private property. But to sit at a subcommittee meeting last week and hear that their proposed build-out had a 60-space deficit before it was done is just disingenuous to the whole process here. So NED is going to need to solve their parking problems, and I believe we can pursue other surface parking lot alternatives in the city, and I would urge you to vote no on this historic vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for public comment. We had 64 people. I heard rumbling over to my right that I let somebody who was against the garage speak for 1 minute and 19 seconds. I did take time for everyone, and some people in favor of the garage, I let speak for 1 minute and 48 seconds and 1 minute and 52 seconds. Thank you. Mayor?
I've got a 15-page update for you tonight. No, okay. I'm skipping the update tonight, and we'll send you things via email if, like today, you got the AECOM Evergreen Well Drill Study, for those of you who hadn't seen that report yet. So you've heard a lot of comments, both for and against. The important piece that I think you've heard over and over again is that we have worked on this for decades. This particular site began under Mayor Clancy in terms of evaluating. I think we started with 8 potential sites, 7 potential sites that we looked at, and then we moved on. It was picked up by Mayor Moak, who then narrowed the field down to Green Street, Titcomb, and the Harris Street. And through vetting and working with consultants, the City Council voted to site the garage at the Titcomb Street lot. So that was decided probably 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And then when I stepped up, this had always been about the waterfront. It is, I'm going to say it again, it's always been about our waterfront. We have to find a place for these cars. There's been memorandums of understanding that have been signed over the years between the NRA and the city, talking about as soon as the garage is built, we'll move cars off the waterfront. The site at Titcomb was picked, design began, conceptual design, neighbors came, and there were lots of concerns that the neighbors had. And we began to talk about that, and the council in particular, downsizing it from almost 400 spaces to 207. We looked at the facade. We spent, the RTA was the ones who were able to secure the $1.5 million, but it took me over 2 administrations to get this $5 million. And it's not something that you can take lightly. I have worked in higher ed and in municipal government for almost 30 years and have written grants federal and on a state level. If we turn back this $5 million, this is going to be a real detriment to the city. We're not asking, tonight the vote is for $3.7 million. You've already bonded the little over 2.1 to purchase the property. This is not an astronomical amount of money. It's $3.7 million. Now, yes, we've had some issues with some of our last 2 bids that came in, and they were higher, but those were highly technical projects. The lifts, Graff Road Lift Station is a very complex and difficult project. And we were able to do some virtual engineering to get the price down. We didn't know what we were going to get from the Plum Island Water and Sewer because it was unknown, difficult conditions out on Plum Island, and that came in substantially higher. But we were able to settle that lawsuit, and we had $4.75 million sitting in a bank account that we could tap into for this project. We're talking about $3.1 million. These aren't numbers that keeps changing. They're numbers that are in response to your questions, that we add information. There's information here about permits, about time, about resident, non-resident permits, about extending parking in the lots. These are the tools that we have, that you as a council have to ensure that this is financially successful. They're tools for you, things that you have used in the past when we raised parking to $1 an hour. We can make this work. I believe in our numbers. In every project that we have put together, we have a AAA bond rating for a reason. It's because we have a strong finance team. These finances have been vetted not only by the RTA, they've been vetted by the design team, they've been vetted by our OPM, Owner's Project Manager team, and they have been vetted by our finance department. We have devoted thousands of hours into this project because our community for years and years has said, we need to get the cars off the waterfront. I am asking you at this juncture in time not to let this all be for naught. One piece that was in a late file tonight that the abutters had asked for was for a height restriction that's in the packet tonight. The other thing I wanted to read to you tonight was from our Secretary of Economic Development, Jay Ash, who wrote to me today. I've been very impressed with the proposal in Newburyport because it addresses a local need to continue to promote the economy. Many communities are challenged to support commerce, small business, and the growth of jobs and tax revenues, and yet Newburyport has figured it out on how to do so by supporting the garage project. I know many communities wish they were in a position to be able to build the garage and have the promise of such economic vitality. I've been impressed with the city's administration's work to bring the vision to reality, and that's why Governor Baker and I have decided to provide the funding to support the project. I think that's a very powerful statement from our Secretary of Economic Development. The team behind me is here to answer questions. The OPM team is here too, and I ask you, I implore you to please don't let all this work go for naught. Please also understand that we have spent to date close to $900,000. That has to be paid back. For what? What do we have to show for it? Nothing. If we don't move this project forward. It's $3.1 million that you're asked to vote for tonight. That is not, it's not 30 million, it's 3.1. We can afford this. Our financials work. Operations are things we will work on together with you, with the abutters, with the community as we move forward. We can't keep addressing every single thing until we have the construction funding. I beg you not to let all this work go for naught. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to consent agenda.
The consent agenda this evening consists of the following. Approval of the minutes for August 14th. There's one transfer, transfer 41, $40,000 solid waste fees to $20,000 hazardous waste and $20,000 into the chipper fund. That's to be referred to Budget and Finance. There are three communications. Communication 98 is a letter from Marshall Murray regarding parking spaces for police. That's to go to Public Safety. Communication 99 is a petition regarding the Hales Court parking lot. Again, Public Safety. Communication 100 is the FY 2017 year-end financial report from the Director of Finance to go to Budget and Finance. There's one appointment, appointment 53, Charles C. Kennedy, 167 Water Street, to the Water and Sewer Commission as an alternate until 8/1/2019. That is the consent agenda this evening.
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The end of the consent agenda, and I'm going to ask for a 5-minute break.
Therefore, the City Council hereby affirmatively declares that an emergency exists, that the transfer of 42 should be voted upon at first introduction to this council. Submitted, Charles.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
President, just very quickly, you know, the DPS had funding to replace the lift. It's been in operation for about 27 years. When they started replacing it, they discovered there was an oil leak, and it had to be replaced. It had to be cleaned up immediately. It was. It needs to be paid for, which is why it's an emergency. And it has been cleaned up, but we should pay for it as quickly as possible. I urge you to vote yes on the preamble.
Need roll call? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Transfer?
The transfer itself is $78,223 from DPS gasoline to clean up mitigation, same amount. It's a new account.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Councilor Zede.
Do you have, Ethan, do you have the number for FY17 actual for this? I just question it because we have 140 in the account, we're transferring 80 out. We only have 50 left, we're pretty early in the fiscal year. Do you know what FY17 actual was off the top of your head?
I do not, but where it's the start of the fiscal year, pretty much what you're looking at as the balance is a unencumbered balance, if you will, because there have been no interdepartmental charges that would come into this account for used gas. So you won't really be putting any departments in jeopardy, if you will, by transferring money out of this gas. This is a surplus in the account that has grown over, you know, how many ever years this account has been set up.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One from communication?
Communication 101 is the memorandum between the RTA and the City of Newburyport.
Why don't you read them?
Motion to receive and file.
Second.
Councilor
Mr.
Zinn.
President, may I ask some questions of the planning director on this?
Sure.
So, Director Port, if you don't mind. So I noticed on the first page that this document was actually signed on the 28th day of June. That's what it says on the first page. It says, as of entered on the 28th day of June, but we haven't heard about it, so we had 2 meetings in July, 1 in August, and then here we are.
I know that we had distributed the draft of that document,
Yes,
and it had not
yeah.
been signed, I think, at the time we distributed it. I can't
So
remember.
have any changes been made to it since the draft was?
Not since the
'cause it hasn't
draft.
the council didn't review it or talk about it beyond, giving it to us as a
Yeah,
draft.
what you're looking at for language should be the exact same as the draft that was
Okay.
distributed to you previously.
My second question is, the first whereas says that on March 1st, 2017, the authority and the city entered an intermunicipal agreement. I don't believe the city council's ever seen that. Do you have a copy of it?
I believe the one that's referred to in that is actually the related to the design phase. So that was there was a couple of adjustments that were made in the design process. We had to pay a little bit more funds in order to make some design adjustments. I think that's the one that's being referred to there.
So we haven't seen that one, but you have. You have seen it next.
I have. I believe.
I mean, I looked through everything I had to see
Yeah.
if I had anything. I don't have any. An IMA to me sounded like the operations agreement, but that's not.
It is not that, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that agreement was a minor adjustment to the design phase.
Okay.
Just doing some specific adjustments with the consultants for the design of the facility.
And my last question on this one, since it's germane to tonight, instead of presumably being able to go to committee, there was a clause in here that apparently upon signature grants the MVRTA a permanent easement to the land.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that? I mean, it seems like granting a permanent easement would be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, we have to have just rights for them to enter the property during the lifespan of the facility. So this facility, according to our engineers, will have a structural lifespan of at least 75 years. The RTA has to have an easement over the property for their vehicles, essentially, anything that they're providing access to. In this case, there's not much impact to the property itself because their buses are coming out in the street. In this case, what they actually need is a lease of the terminal office. Originally, the assumption was that they would be operating the facility. We've now decided that the city will be operating that facility. We think there's greater efficiency in that. So in reality, while they do need access along the bus drop-offs, that's actually in the right-of-way. In the terminal or the facility itself, there's really a small terminal office, and that's what they need access to. They would not need to, other than their employees that might be helping us with monitoring the garage, dealing with meter issues, things like that, they would need an easement for crossing the property,
So are you
per
saying
se.
the easement covers the office or not? Just access to the office or the office itself?
The office, and if their staff has the need to go through the facility to help us with monitoring the parking, payment of the meters and things like that, assisting with overseeing for instance, if there's a problem with the gate coming up and down, their staff may be assisting that in the operations of the facility. So their staff would have to have the ability to come through the property to do that, but only for that limited purpose. It would not be a restriction that would permanently impact the city's ability to do something with the property. It's just for them to get into the property and do their operations.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Motion to receive and file? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One no. Next, 102.
Mr. President, move that we refer this matter to the Committee on Public Safety.
We have to say what it is first.
I'm sorry.
Here.
Thank you.
Mr. President, if I can
Yep.
summarize, it is a letter to Roy Hawkins, Chairman, Atomic Safety and Licensing Board, submitted on behalf of the Newburyport City Council by Councilor Hahn, essentially questions the evacuation plan and the 10-mile radius that Newburyport sits in, and there's 8 or so bullet points.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Public Safety.
Second. The second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next communication?
Communication 103 is a letter from Gail Titan in Amesbury seeking to allow a table and bake sale items to raise money for her daughter Alyssa's surgery costs on Bono.
Well, Mr. President, I think we need an emergency preamble for this one. I'll propose it.
Second.
All in favor of the emergency preamble?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
104. 104 is the late file from the chamber in support of the parking garage, quote, good for business, ease of congestion, economic growth, promotes motor transit, commitment to being a green community, and limiting completing waterfront park, signed Ann Orman and David Strange.
Motion to receive and file.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 105.
Mr. Chair? Mr. Clerk, could you check your mic?
Unmuted, thank you.
Thank you.
105.
105 is a letter from David Zeman, to whom it may concern. This is a backup letter. If you remember our last meeting, there was a Plinko event that we were a little bit stymied upon on State Street, and this is backup material for that. There's a photograph and a letter.
If we can just move this to public safety, it's coming out during public safety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 106.
106 is the parking garage financials. There's a number of pages, has been assembled by the Director of Finance, and speaks for itself.
Motion to receive and file. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. No. 2 noes.
2 noes.
107.
107 is a late file block party, Warren Street. Block party date, September 16th, 2007, submitted by Sharon Casserly. It does have all 4 sign-offs. It is to be held on September 16th. It would close between 44 and 52 Warren Street.
Motion to refer to public safety.
Second.
All in favor?
I think we have another meeting.
Meeting on the 11th.
Meeting on the 11th. Give her 5 days.
5-day notice.
I'd like to make a motion for emergency preamble.
Second.
If you want to withdraw yours.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
If you'd be so kind to draft a wonderful emergency preamble for me, I'd appreciate
I've got
it.
it drafted in my head.
Thank you.
And we'll approve that draft in your head.
Exigent circumstances to have a party.
Motion to approve the preamble?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve block party?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Go on to appointments. Second reading.
Second reading for the following appointments. Appointment number 50, Catherine Harried, 100 High Street, to the Tree Commission as an alternate till 5/1/2018. Appointment 52, Maureen Louise Pomeroy, 62 Boardman Street, to the Zoning Board of Appeals until 8/1/2021. And then there is a appointment 51, which is Christopher Zaramba, 52 Longfellow Drive, to the Zoning Board of Appeals until 8/1/2019.
Motion to approve. Collectively? Collectively.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Councilor Junta.
Yes.
Council President O'Brien.
Yes. Move to order of the, is it 43?
40. 43 is order taken. Committee item, Mr. President, that I think is coming out.
Okay.
49. Order 49?
49.
Order 49 is Section 13-168 to amend our parking regulations submitted by Councilor Eigenman on State Street. No parking on the easterly side at 143A State Street, beginning at the northeasterly corner of the driveway at 143A State Street, and extending northeasterly for a distance of 10 feet.
Motion to refer to public safety.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Order 50.
Order 50 is a late file requiring an emergency preamble that reads, in pertinent part, under our Charter 2-9B, an emergency must be declared by a supermajority of the council in order to act upon a measure, in this case to expedite construction of the parking garage forthwith after approval of the loan order originally dated July 13th in the amount of $3,704,000 to pay cost of constructing a new intermodal parking facility. This emergency in essence exists surrounding the funding of the garage. Submitted, Councilor Tantar.
Motion to approve.
I'd like to move to take order number 44 out of order before this matter.
Second.
It'd have to come out of general government and neighborhood and city services.
Order 44 and is the ballot question, correct?
Correct.
Yes. And second?
Second.
Discussion?
I think we should do a motion to table this one since we,
Okay.
and then we're going back onto the table.
Or receive and file. Table.
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 Table it.
All right.
Table it.
Second.
All in favor of the table?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Ballot question, removing the ballot question, Order 44 from Neighborhood and City Services and General Government.
Moved in second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One no.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve Order 44,
Right.
seconded by Councilor Devlin.
So read the order, please. Could you read the order?
That the City Council of the City of Newburyport hereby approves the following question to be placed on the November 7, 2017 election ballot. Quote, does the City of Newburyport support authorization by the City Council of funding for construction and operation of a new parking garage to be located at 90 Pleasant Street and 83 Merrimack Street in Newburyport, to be more commonly known as the Intermodal Transit and Parking Facility? Question mark. Yes or no? Submitted, Councilor Thomas O'Brien.
Mr. President?
Councilor Connell?
Yeah, I think it would be reasonable to also take this out of neighborhood and city services since both committees had jurisdiction.
We
on
did.
it.
Yeah, we did.
We do, neighborhood and city services good as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Devlin?
If I may, through the chair, Mr. President, and my fellow councilors, ballot question is at the core of our democratic, institutions. As city councilors, we've all done this. We seek out input from the public, either through emails, postings on websites, door knocking, conversations at the supermarket. We're always looking to find out what the public opinion is. Councilor at Large Cameron is actually particularly good at this in sending out surveys because we're trying to find out what the public opinion is and how can it inform our not only our specific debates and the resolutions before us, but future debates and future resolutions before us. This is a very good public policy tool that we can use. In the timeline that's been described to us in a committee meeting, we will probably get bids back and have to decide upon them sometime in November of 2017 on the garage. And This is a good public policy tool. If it's a non-binding resolution, and if we need it, and the garage goes over bid, like a lot of projects have, if the garage won 70 to 30, it's a no-brainer. You can go forward on it. If the garage loses 70 to 30, then you can bring it back to the council perhaps and talk about it some more. But this is non-binding. It's a good way to give the public a chance to opine on it. If those of you who have written me on both sides are correct that you're in the silent majority, or what, I'm getting confused about who's in what, but you know, this is a good tool and a good opportunity for you to have your say. So I would strongly suggest that we vote in favor of this, and be curious to hear what the other councils have to say.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not going to be a strong supporter of this, but I believe at the moment, unless I'm persuaded otherwise, that I am going to vote in favor of it. I agree with everything that Councilor Devlin said about the importance of public voices. I also know several speakers here tonight and through email and in letters to the editor have talked about us as representative of the people of Newburyport. I think this is special, and I've said, you know, in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, yes, absolutely. What makes me hesitant and has made me hesitant about a ballot initiative at this point, especially one that comes from the council and does not come from signatures from citizens that want to put it on the ballot, is that we are so late in the game that we are at serious risk of losing the state money. Maybe if there's a delay and we don't have half of the money spent by the end of next fiscal year, which is June 30th of 2018, maybe we can pull yet another rabbit out of our hat and extend the life of that state money. But at some point, you know, they don't give you the money and let you take your time on it. I think anybody that's, you know, a recipient of federal or state funds knows that. So that's my hesitancy about dragging this out. The fact that it's non-binding, however, I think, you know, I do want to know what people want to know, what people think about this. I think I have a pretty good sense. We'll find out through a vote, but I think this can help us move it along. If we pass the construction bond tonight, and, you know, people are going to, you know, a good chunk of the population is going to go away mad that they didn't get a say. If the construction bond gets shot down tonight, those of us who are in favor of it are going to say, well, the people really support this. So I think, you know, this is a decent, you know, way to get it. Again, I think this could have been done in years past, and maybe we would have acted strong, you know, more strongly as we pushed this along. You know, I think the mayor and the administration have done the best they can. Yeah, it's been a moving target because, as I've said to people, we were buying it from somebody who's pretty recalcitrant, and we are not, you know, priority number one here in Newburyport, although they're talking about doing things on Waterfront West. We cajoled the money out of the feds and the state, and, you know, even getting them to agree on definitions and certain agreements is a real challenge. So it has taken a while. It has taken 40 years, and it's taken this council, you know, its whole term so far, and we had just really started this process in 2015 as a couple of new councilors were getting up to speed. So I think, you know, to put it on the ballot, I think makes some sense. So I believe I'm going to support it.
Councilor Tonto.
Originally, I voted against sending this to committee because I was opposed to putting it on the ballot. Again, I would have supported it last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I was concerned that we would find ourselves in a position of approving the bond and then run up against that June 30th, 2018 deadline, could potentially have spent some money and lose that money. However, I am going to vote in favor of this now. Councilor Devlin has prevailed upon me, and I think his argument is strong. His argument is that the council could benefit, all right, at this point from having a citywide vote on this, because we, you know, depending on how the bids come in, you know, we might have to make another decision after the November 7th election. I will be voting yes on this.
Councilor Cronin.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been conversation that this initiative for the ballot started too late in the process. And I reject that out of hand simply because there wasn't the information that we could gather, not mentioning the people. So now that the information is available, and it's not 100%, but it is available, I think the people have the right to weigh in. This is extremely important to the city, and it's important that we let the city speak so its residents can come forward and have a seat at the table. Those residents can provide a path to the future in Newburyport, because let's not kid ourselves, for better or for worse, the change of this community as a little seaside community will change with a parking garage in a major scheme. So I think it's important for us to allow the people to weigh in, take their input, and move forward with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Junta?
I support this because the residents of my ward are asking for this. I've done a lot of door knocking as I was collecting signatures, and the number one thing I was asked was for this to be put on the ballot. So my residents want it, so I'm going to vote for it.
Councilor Z.
I have to remind myself to smile because it's been such an intensely negative process for the past, well, a long time. I'm going to support this as well, but I'm going to also try and be the voice of, I don't know what you want to call it tonight. I mean, to vote on this and to vote on the bond in the same night is almost borderline insane. And sometimes I sit in my room by myself and think that I'm going insane because I talk to myself and I think, am I the only one that thinks this is like things are nuts? And I'll have more to say about that during the garage deliberation. So I don't know. I'm either going to leave here and go to a mental institution, or I'm going to survive, and I don't know. So it goes against my core to vote against this because I want people to have the ability. But frankly, and I do say this with all due respect to my colleagues, this is lip service. If the bond gets passed tonight or the bond doesn't get passed tonight, we're just putting on a show so we can say we accepted it as, and whatever other arguments you want to come up with. But the real show here tonight is the bond, and I don't think I have the votes to make this binding, so I'm not even going to bother trying, or to try and add in the estimated amount, not the bid amount. So I'm going to vote for it and put it on the ballot, and maybe it will inform us in the future of how we did things wrong. So I'll leave that there for you guys to think about. Thank you.
Roll call.
Motion to approve order.
I'm sorry.
No one had their hand up, so.
I'm sorry. I'll be quick. I can sort of see how this vote is going. I guess what I'm concerned about, what will we learn from this? What if we see a mayoral result oppose the result of this? Where are we learning from this? I ran for mayor 4 years ago, and I talked to everybody, and I said, two things. What do you think about a parking garage? I wanted surface lots. What do you think about open waterfront? Man, open waterfront was huge, huge, huge. You know what people said about parking lots? Don't really care. They didn't really care. So the people, and I say this in the nicest way, people who are busy with their lives and not be able to be in this room and not be able to watch this television show, they do not have the time to know the nuances of what's happening here. And I know that sounds like it's insulting. It's not. I've been doing this for 18 years on this one project, on that one site. It keeps going back to that one site. And it frustrates me that we expect people within a month to get the nuances of 18 years. So, okay, sure. Council from Ward 1 is right. We'll let this go. Is it really lip service? What will we learn? What can we hope to learn? I don't know. So sure, I'll vote for it too. If it's overwhelming and the preliminary election goes overwhelming, okay, maybe we can sit on something here. But again, Councilor was right. We have to vote on the bond tonight. So does this really mean anything?
Ms. Connell?
I agree significantly with what Councilor Zeid said. Yeah, sometimes this sort of stuff makes you crazy. So save me a place, whatever institution you're in, I'll sign on. The temptation is to vote in favor of this because, if we didn't respect the voters' opinions, none of us would have ever run for office and placed ourselves on the ballot as subject to their judgment. I think that's self-evident. And had this been on the ballot several years ago, it might have guided our deliberations before we'd gotten to this point. But at this particular point in time, it seems almost cynical, because as my counselor to the left said a moment ago, many voters don't watch everything as closely as perhaps the people in this room. And they may, in fact, be terribly confused by this, wondering, are we going forward and then asking them for permission later? Or does that permission count, or are we going to discard it and continue where we thought we were going to go before we asked for their permission? So I'm going to vote against this. I'm going to vote no, not because I disrespect the opinions of the voters, quite the opposite. I respect their opinions when they're when their opinions can actually make a difference. I think that we demean the ballot process by giving them something that is at best advisory, but at worst manipulative and misleading.
I'd like to ask the city clerk a question. How does the ballot, does it show on the ballot the words non-binding?
No.
It does
It
not.
would go on exactly as it is.
Okay.
Let's call.
A point of parliamentary inquiry to the clerk then. Is it within our purview to modify the language so that it says non-binding or advisory?
I think you can add the words non-binding if you want. You certainly can change what you want, because this came from the body, it's not a citizen initiative. I will tell you that I ran the language as it is right now by the city solicitor, and he blessed it, if you will. He opined that it would be okay to put on the ballot. Because remember, with the citizen initiative petitions, after 250 signatures were gathered, he then opined that it was not legal.
Yep.
That was slightly different, because that was an attempt to be binding, which is much, much more difficult. But you certainly could make some changes to it, and Frank, there's enough time. It needs to get to me by 35 days before November 7th, is it? So we actually have another meeting at least. So in other words, if you made a change, such as adding the words non-binding or whatever you want, I could then run it by the city solicitor again before our next meeting. So if he came back and said, you know, you need to change this or this, we'd have time.
Councilor Devlin?
I would just point out the question that was subject, that 250 plus people signed. The question was presented to them: shall the city of Newburyport construct a parking garage in downtown Newburyport on Merrimack Street, Titcomb Street? So this question that's been presented by our president is actually more precise than the one that 250 people, this is what 250 residents signed a petition for. So ours is actually more detailed than that, giving them a little bit more than what they had asked for in the first place. So this is not a matter, on a technicality, 250 people plus asked for this petition to be put on the ballot, and on a technicality, they were told they couldn't, so that I believe the council president then took over and said, well, I'll just present it to the council. So had we not done that, or had the city council president not done that, I'm sure we would have gotten a different petition, and 250 people would have signed it. This is at, I hear you, but I disagree with you completely. This is at the very center of my constitutional soul, that this is the right thing to do, and it's not lip service. It's giving people a voice in what they want, and this project won't be done by then. And yes, it is non-binding, but it's important to get this information from the people, not only from our perspective, but it's important for them to be able to give that, whether it's a vocal minority that's against this or a silent majority that's for it. It's important for those people to feel like they're part of this system, they're part of this process. I've spoken to all the abutters here, save one, but prior to this tonight, and I've spoken to them on many occasions, and they all feel at least a lot better that they've been re-involved and re-immersed in this process. And that had a lot to do with our resolution of March of 2016, saying that there had to be an impact advisory group. And they feel like they've been brought in at least, and their voices are heard. I'm saying this resolution is going to do the same thing for either however the ballot question goes, I mean the bonding goes. One group or another is going to feel, and it was significant. So for some reason, people felt I was the middle of the road guy here, so I'm getting run over by both sides for the last week and a half. And it's running about 55. There was a late surge on behalf of the fours, but it was running about 55 to 45 with about 12 phone calls from older people who I don't think could use the internet, so called my phone. So look, this is a way of one group or another that loses out, so to speak, of actually having a chance to express their views. And frankly, whoever loses, if they also lose at the ballot, it puts this to bed forever. We don't have to hear for years that we didn't listen to a silent majority. Thank you.
Councilor Cameron?
I don't always agree with the conclusions of Councilor Devlin, but I do agree with that conclusion. Yeah, I mean, this is advisory in nature, and it's important. And we've been hearing from people who think it's 90% their side and 10% are these bad people, and the other side it's 90%. I mean, I think we know the truth is somewhere in the middle, and if it's in the middle, then that's where we are supposed to do our work. If it's 70-30 one way or the other, then that tells us something. So I think we do gain something from this. It's definitely more than lip service. It will add, part of the reason, it's going to be contentious, possibly, but I think it's the thing to do. I think the language is fine. I think we should just stick with it and give it an up or down vote.
Roll call.
Roll call. Motion to approve order number 44. Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
No.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
No.
Councilor Genta.
Yes.
Council President O'Brien.
Yes.
Needing 6, motion passes.
Back to the
Order number 50, the emergency preamble was tabled.
Should that remain on the table until the bond authorization is dealt with?
Yes.
Yes. I think,
minute on the table.
I would like, can I speak to that? I would, Councilor Devlin has an amendment to the bond order that will address this issue, and which will make, the late file and the amendment moot. So I think we should deal with the bond, deal with the...
It's on the table.
Yeah, leave it on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Committee reports, I guess? Is that it?
Yes.
Yes. Motion to remove order number 45, bond order in the parking garage.
Second, motion to amend.
Second.
Let's hear it.
I'm sorry. So we had a,
What's the
Hear what it
amendment?
is. We get to know what it
I
is.
needed a second. I can read it.
so there's a motion to remove Councilor Tantar and seconded by
Me.
Councilor Devlin.
Was that voted on, Mr. President? Motion to remove?
No.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to amend.
Second.
Mr. President?
Go ahead. Councilor Devlin.
I propose after, in the first line, last sentence, parking facility, to add of 200 spaces, comma, in the form and at the cost described in the latest plan design specification and estimate submitted to and considered by the City Council in connection with this bond order, a copy of which is appended hereto, and containing all mitigation agreed to by the city with the Impact Advisory Group, including but not limited to a solid concrete wall between the abutting properties and the garage, and a deed restriction preventing the height of the garage from being increased for 10 years, to be held in gross for the benefit of the general public or the benefit of abutting land, or to any other benefited parties deemed appropriate and applicable.
Second.
Did that already second?
A copy of that?
Yeah, could you do that again?
I have submitted a copy to the clerk, but it's after facilities.
Just, excuse me.
It's essentially to do two things. One, to tie the bonding to the plans that we've reviewed and the mitigation efforts that were encapsulated in those plans. And also to, rather than, Director Port's language was somewhat vague about how the restrictions were going to be implemented. A deed restriction is something that we can put in the deed. You can have a deed restriction benefiting in gross. It's for the public good. It's a little more difficult to word. I don't really care how our legal counsel does it. You can also have it benefiting abutting land, or you can have it benefiting, the historical commission or whomever. And you can write that into the deed.
You want us to vote on this amendment tonight? We haven't even seen it.
I do.
Well, my vote will be then. Any further discussion on the amendment? Which I haven't seen. You ever seen it?
No, Mr. President. May I ask a question of the owner's project manager through you, Mr. President?
Sure.
I know you probably haven't seen that language either, but you heard it. Would you care to comment on it in any way? Is any of it of import to you? Specifically the part of the picture and the drawings and the abutter considerations?
As I understand the amendment, you're tying them to the actual plans and specifications as they're currently being developed, and that does include the wall that you referenced in particular. That's what I understand from the amendment.
Okay, so no value engineering, is that your understanding?
Correct. Right now, the designer has direction to proceed with the solid wall as requested and as agreed to, yes.
So may I ask one more question? In the estimate that was provided to us from HERE that you prepared, it was my understanding that that wall wasn't included in the costs. Has that changed, or you now believe you can fit the wall in at the same cost that we were presented earlier? I understand there were material changes and things like that had occurred and now are going back the other way.
Correct.
So does the $3.7 million include the wall, yes or no?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Agaman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I mean, I've done all kinds of last-minute settlements at planning boards and boards of supervisors, and I want to learn from my mistakes. So if we could add insubstantial conformity, because we don't have like the final MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, that's usually how we do it, because otherwise there'll be somebody moves something an inch or whatever, and someone could challenge it. That's not what your intent is, I don't believe.
It is not.
So I would like to add that as a friendly amendment.
I have no objection to that.
And then also, as to the wall, the drawing that I got at our last IAG was property line screen wall dated August 7th, 2017. Is that the latest and greatest? Okay, I'd like to cite that so there's no question, because there were a couple different drawings, and this is the one we were shown. And it is a precast wall with thin brick and limestone coloring. So
what was the date again?
August 7, from Desmond Design Management. Just so we all know which wall we mean. So if you did those two things, I do think it's okay by me. I mean, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead. That's my comment for now.
Councilor Rolls?
Could you repeat the number of spaces?
207.
Okay.
Okay. You did say 200.
He said 200.
You
That's
misspoke.
Okay, I just want to be sure. You're good.
Who says 207?
Yep.
Council Vogel?
Thank you, Mr. President. If I can direct a question also to the project manager. And my concern would be, as Councilor Zede had spoken about, value engineering, should we, run up against more expense? Does this, as you hear this language, stop us from value engineering if we need to cut some costs or whatever it might be? Can you comment on that, or maybe the councilor who sponsored the amendment? Can we not value engineer?
That was not my intent, no.
That's not your
Just wanted to make
intent.
sure the mitigation stayed in there. If we did value engineer, that the mitigation that we promised the abutters stayed in there.
And that's how it's interpreted, is that it's only, your biggest concern is the mitigation and not to value engineer that out, per se.
Correct.
Okay. I'll take that. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Council Zede?
I just want to go on record, that's not how I understand or interpret the language. And I just asked Mr. Pruner, and he said no value engineering. So
Right.
let's be clear about what we're talking about.
Okay.
Council argument?
I'm sorry, but just to be more, again, precise on terms. So, the project, there's no way that the project is absolutely designed and there are going to be changes in the field. So the point is, if it's a substantial conformity or substantial compliance with the drawings, the neighbors are going to get what they were promised, but there may be, material substitution so long as they're not substantial. That's what I'm getting at. So, for example, the footing underground for this concrete wall is drawn right now as being, 1 foot deep, and it's, like 3 feet, in length. I mean, it could be they go out in the field and they say, you know what, it's going to be 9 inches deep of concrete, and you don't want that tripping you up if they can save a few bucks on that. What you want is a substantial compliance, so that they were promised a wall, they get a wall with brick on it. That cannot be value engineered out. But you got to be careful. You can't say we're married to everything in the drawings right now, because it could even bite you. I mean, it could be things that we want to change. The crosswalks, for example, are still controversial with me. We have crosswalks right at the northeast corner. I'm not convinced that's where they go. I think it may want to put it at the northwest corner where the other tower is, and then have a crosswalk on Pleasant Street. So I don't want to lock us in. Don't want to do that.
So may I ask for a point of order to read the amendment as it now with the friendly included, so I can hear the language
The
again?
amendment was a friendly, do you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I do accept that as a friendly amendment. Would you like me to read it now? Because unless you feel like...
This is what
okay,
I
you've
think
got it. Okay.
we have. Of 207 spaces, comma, in the form and at the cost described in the latest plan design, comma, in substantial conformity and referencing a drawing dated August 7th by Desmond Design. Those 2 items. Then it goes on, specifications and estimate, unless you wanted it inserted some other place.
I would suggest that it's of 207 spaces, comma, in substantial conformity to the form and at the cost described in the latest plan design. That's where I would put substantial conformity.
Fine.
And the garage, after the wall between the abutting properties and the garage, as shown on the solid wall plan dated 8/7/2017 from Desmond Design.
Okay, so the design plan references after what?
Excuse me?
So you've got 207 spaces, and then you have your insubstantial conformity language.
Yes.
And then does that go on right to the plan itself, or do you insert the plan later?
Insert the plan later after abutting properties and the garage. So line 1, 2, 3, 4. Last word of line 4 is garage.
Got it. Yep.
Any further discussion? Council Vogel?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to go right back to can somebody say yes or no on value engineering? Sorry, Mr. Heigerman, Councilor, I just want to make sure. It's mostly just, we're concerned about the wall and the mitigation.
I think substantial conformity allows for value engineering. I think Mr. Pruner made his comment before that friendly amendment was added.
Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Vote on the amendment?
This is the motion to amend, as put forth by Councilor Devlin.
Mr. President, I think Mr. Manning wanted to say something, if you may be so bold.
Is he the 12th counselor? Is he the 12th counselor?
No, he's not. I'm just pointing it out to you, and you can make your own decision.
Go ahead.
I would just add that we did have bond counsel vet the loan order in its current form, and before issuance, they are required to issue a legal opinion on all bond orders. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that this would require their approval as to the legality in their opinion.
Okay. Councilor Junto?
I just wanted to throw out there that I'm in favor of this amendment, so I hope folks will join us.
So vote on the amendment again. Try it again.
Okay, this is a roll call on the motion to amend. Councilor Tantar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Zede?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yep.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Councilor Cronin?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
Yes.
Councilor Earls?
Yes.
Councilor Agaman?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Council President O'Brien?
No.
10 yes, 1 no. Motion passes.
Now as amended, right?
Yes.
The order is amended on the floor. Needs a motion. I think, Mr. President, it needs a motion to approve as amended. Thanks.
So moved, as amended.
Second.
Any more discussion? Councilor Zede?
I have several questions, Mr. President, if I may address to some of the folks here. That's okay. First question for Director Port or Mr. Pruner. Are we at 100% design as of today?
The design team is still working on the technical specifications, so written text that goes with the plans, as well as some of the details about construction.
The answer is no. Okay.
Right.
When do you expect to go to bid?
I'll leave that to Tony.
10/6 bids available.
October 6th is the date to pull. Okay? Well, since you got me going down that road, can you explain to me the urgency of voting tonight if the bids are not going to be available until October 6th? Please, an honest answer. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Do you have a document that says anything about sharing revenues with the MVRTA? Okay, go ahead.
The timing, we have a tight timeline with this project, and we have for some time now. I won't speak for Tony Pruner, but having been involved with the process up until this date, there's been a lot of moving pieces that we've had to work out. The design team has to know if there's anything else that's moving in this project so they can finish those specifications and the plans and so forth. The bid package has to be made ready to go. My primary concern, looking at this project from the beginning and going back several years, even prior to the 30% design phase, is if I was a contractor bidding on this project, I would want to take, and we need to keep in mind in our schedule, they need to get foundations in the ground this season. They just...
Right, but I mean, just back up. I'm just asking about when you're going out to bid.
Right.
And how our vote tonight impacts or doesn't impact that. With all due respect, there's no connection between tonight's vote
Yep.
and October 6th. We have 2 meetings in September. I'm not asking for more time. I'm just pointing out that that's the case, and that's actually consistent with what Mr. Pruner said about 2 weeks ago at a committee meeting where we asked what the timeline is. So I'm fine with that. Next question is, can you show me a document? Is there any document that describes if there'll be any revenue share with the MVRTA? Is there anything like that? Are you confident that there is no revenue share with them at all on docking fees from the buses, parking, the 45 spaces, whatever all those things mean? Do you have a document you can show me that says that we're good and we're square on all those things? Or is the one we talked about earlier the only one?
Yeah, we do not have an operational memorandum of agreement at this time.
Is it possible that there would be a revenue share asked in that process?
From the RTA?
Yes.
Based on our verbal discussions, we're not expecting that at all. Of course, we have not reviewed that document yet, but based on our verbal discussions thus far, the RTA has said that we are the ones operating the facility and they're comfortable with that, meaning we set the rates, we deal with the revenues coming in.
So similarly, that available term that we keep talking about endlessly would be defined in that document?
No, again, our legal counsel is not here this evening, but if you look at the our MOA that's been recently approved,
Yep.
it says available in the facility.
Right, but available is not a defined term in the contract, so I don't know what it means.
Okay, I have explained that previously to a number of counselors who had asked about this particular question. If you ask an attorney of the definition of availability in that particular document, they're not going to tell you that that's the same as having a space designated or restricted in any way.
Does it have to be 8-hour space?
It just says it has to be available, and the reason for it being available is because if the federal government is going to be funding this project in any way, they have to make sure that spaces in the facility are not exclusively used by, say, residents of the city or employees of downtown, but not allowed to be used for transit riders.
So they'll be happy if there's 45 spaces that are standard 2-hour spaces that one couldn't reasonably commute on a 2-hour time.
Yeah, as long as the commuters can also use those
So it
spaces.
means nothing really practically to the FTA.
Correct.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. In January of 2018, you submitted a document to us that said that the area that we're talking about here on the Merrimack-Tecum site could hold 80 cars. What has changed since January?
January of this year?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So looking back, there's a couple of different things. First of all, and I've seen different sketches given by different people. I've seen sketches showing somewhere between 90 and 100 spaces from people. That essentially includes an L-shaped piece of land. The original, I don't have the diagram in front of me, I can pull it up, and I don't want to lengthen this conversation, but there's an L-shaped piece of land there, including both the fitness factory site and the parking lot that is on that same parcel, as well as the old Cenepa property, the mansard roof building that was torn down several years ago. Originally, we were looking at all of that L-shaped piece of land, those two parcels combined, as the site for this facility. That site might have fit somewhere in the area of 90 to 100 spaces. We are not under contract right now to purchase that full piece of land. We're actually purchasing only a portion, roughly a rectangular shape of that land. If you take a drawing of that piece of land and you cram as many spaces on it, you might be able to fit, with tandem parking and things like that, 90 to 100 spaces, but you're never going to get something that will actually satisfy the planning board's regulations for a site plan review, and for good reason. You wouldn't want to have a parking lot anywhere else that a private developer could do without landscaping.
Is that the 80 spaces you were estimating was based on buying the entire piece of property, including the fitness factory?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact comment at that time, but there's no way you can fit on the piece of land that we are acquiring right now 80 spaces and meet the regs.
It's just you produced it, so that's why I'm asking you. Okay. Next question is, unfortunately on the waterfront discussions, the meetings have been taken kind of offline, if you will, or out of the public view. Are you involved in those conversations?
With the Waterfront Trust and NRA, yes.
Yeah. Do you know what the current line of discussion is about the pop-up park construction? Can you,
meaning whether it will stay in place or?
Whether there'd be potential for building on it, or if it's been discussed in your private?
Right now, we haven't addressed the details of that in those documents. There is an allowance of that in the future, but primarily to replace the trailer bathrooms that we have and the trailer visitor booth we have with something more permanent. That's the intent there. But it hasn't been specified in any greater detail.
Okay. Thank you. A couple questions for Mr. Pruner, if you don't mind, and I know I'm taking up time, but I got to get my questions out. So, we've heard a little bit about automated parking systems in the context of operations of the garage. Does the bid, do the estimates include the system, or is that another thing, to put the arms in and the whole thing that runs?
Yes,
it does. Okay. And is it fully automated, what you've estimated based on, or is it a hybrid human?
Right now, there's automation, but we're building the entire facility for the manned facility.
Okay, let me ask you a different way. On day one, can it be operated without a human in it? Or are we missing
With the proper
elements?
selection of the equipment, yes.
Okay, but what have you estimated?
We
Did
have
you estimate the
estimated
proper equipment?
We have estimated with I'm not sure of the payment with the kiosk, whether it needs a person or whether there's been a decision made to the relative kiosks or pay machines like we have in the other surface lots. So I'm not quite sure what the city's direction is relative to manned or unmanned facility.
Okay.
If I could. At this time, we've counted in the budget, the original plans and the plans that you've most recently seen have gates at the entries and exits. We've been discussing with the parking clerk, your city clerk, Rich Jones, the possibility of having, removing the gates and using payment kiosk in the building, but because he needs more time to evaluate what's the right device for us to use to have installed there, we are allowing in the plans conduits to the locations where those fixtures would be and allowing him to decide at a later date which machines would be most appropriate. But right now, we're carrying in the budget the money for those pieces of equipment. We just need him to decide what vendor is the right one to go with.
Okay. I'm not so concerned about what the machines are. I'm just trying to, my next question's for Mr. Manning, if I may. So continuing with garage operations. So in recent projections, you pegged the garage ops at 160 grand a year. A couple weeks ago, it was 173, and last year it was 250. So it's been steadily coming down. The other revelation from last week's financials was that we now operate the garage 24/7. So are you just counting on full automation, so the operations costs just go down, but we can run the facility? I mean, Director Port in testimony in committee said we probably run the garage from 8 a.m. until maybe 10 p.m. And that was when we had estimates at 173, and now we've got 250, going the other way, $160,000.
Councillor, we were originally assuming that for the financial projection, that the operations of the garage would be outsourced to a company like Laz Parking, which is why the projections were a bit higher. Upon further discussions, we looked at the potential of taking it in-house as part of the paid parking program. So we were able to realize some projected cost savings through that.
And further cost savings since, even more cost savings. Because you've been steadily coming down in the garage operations cost. Every iteration I get is a little bit lower. So it's 250, 173, 160. And then I did read your answer about 1.5 FTEs covering 24/7, 365 as well.
Okay.
All right, let me take a break for a second so I can yield somebody else to speak, and I'll get back up with more questions. Thank you.
I just have one question at this point. And I don't know who to direct it to, but somebody on the construction team. Is Mass DOT / Commonwealth of Massachusetts or the FTA aware of the lawsuit?
We haven't reached out to them over that particular matter. It's actually a local issue, and our council does not believe there's merit to the appeal. So for that reason,
I'm not worried about that. I mean, you know, first off, this could be a so-called nuisance lawsuit. I understand that position. I'm sure Johnson & Johnson thought the baby powder lawsuit was a nuisance lawsuit. I'm asking, does Mass DOT or the FTA know anything that we are being sued and they're putting in $6.5 million?
I'm not aware of them. We haven't sent any information to them that I'm aware of. Again, I don't believe, based on the information involved, that would have any impact on their interest in funding the project. Based on the merits of the appeal, our attorney would be discussing with them if there are any questions on their end.
Any further discussion? Councilor Z.
No one's interested. A couple more questions for Ethan, and then I'll make some comments and get out of the way. On some of your numbers, Ethan, so I looked up, sorry, Director Manning. I can't, let's see, I guess these are based on today's, the ones you sent out this afternoon. So in the way I look at this, just to be clear, is I add the parking revenues from the meters, that line, plus the garage meters together, because that to me gives me an idea of the total demand change that you might expect from one year to another.
Okay.
I think that's fair, reasonable.
Sure.
So when I look at your numbers from year 1 to year 2 with the garage, you have a 28% increase in that year. I mean, I did the math, and hopefully you can trust me on that. And then between year 2 and 3, you have an increase of 43% with no changes in the rate, not yet at least. You don't do that until FY20. So it sounds like John Burke has had some input into some of these things. So I'd like you to justify for me, you know, double-digit gains twice in a year. And I've looked back historically since the parking system started. We've had some good years where we've actually had some strong growth. But 28 and then followed by 43 would be monumental growth, in my opinion. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Sure, and this comes back to some of the tools for revenue enhancement that John Burke started to allude to in his letter in the packet. There are many tools that the city has that we've yet to tap that could increase demand in both the parking garage and the off-street lots. Mostly having to do with regulations as they relate to permits, as they relate to free on-street parking, also added enforcement, looking at the location of employee lots, for example. There's a long list of enhancements that I think John Burke is going to recommend when he completes his study that I think should make these increases in demand really realistic.
Okay, and some of those revenue tools are obviously resident parking passes, 8 p.m., et cetera, et cetera.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I've had this discussion with you by email, but unfortunately, I didn't hear back from you. So the revenue numbers for the meters, we've obviously had a disagreement about what the number is, which seems crazy. We shouldn't have to argue about that. I mean, I request my numbers every month, annoyingly so, to the clerk's office. Every month I look at the parking numbers and have for the past year and a half. I mean, in your numbers, you're using your GL number, which I understand, but I mean, what is the deal? Why does why do you not agree on what the revenues were for the past year on meters specifically, and maybe tickets too? I gather there might be some relation there, some problem.
Sure, a lot of it has to do with timing. And we talked about the, for example, I think a lot of it was driving that increase that we were looking at from FY16 to FY17, and we were concerned about the fact that the rates didn't go up, that the revenue did not go up as much as we expected. After we looked at the revenue in more detail, there were actually, over a month worth of collections in FY16 that were at the new rate. So that would, of course, cause that percentage increase to come down a little bit. But Rich and I have gone through all the numbers, and there are, timing differences that account for, the differences between the department and the general ledger, and that's normal. The accountants report revenue on an earned basis, so while we might report revenue slightly different than the department, that doesn't mean that either one is incorrect. They're just reporting on a slightly different period.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Junta?
I received a lot of emails over the last 48 hours. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And as I got emails, I had to let people know kind of what's going on here. Back in July, we got a good average, or a worst, average, and best case of financials. I reviewed these. I took a look at them very closely because I'm not averse to a parking garage. I'm averse to parking garages that lose money, and that's a problem. So I took these numbers, and we got them in July, and I got a call from a nice gentleman on Thursday, and he said, "Why does this always come down to the 11th hour?" And I said, "Well, I got these numbers while the mayor was on vacation. And then I went away for 2 weeks on vacation, and then when we came back, we talked." And whenever you're looking at starting a new business, or maybe a division in a business, you get your best average and your worst. And what you do is you take your best and you throw it away, because it's a risk. Every investment's a risk. And so you got to look at your worst and your average, and you got to try to find out where your numbers are. And it's hard to do that here in Newburyport because we don't actually track what's going in our parking lots. We don't know how many people in the lots are residents, and we don't know how many people are paying. So it's difficult to look at these numbers and find out if the garage will actually do this. Now, again, I'll say it again. I'm not averse for a garage. I'm just looking as a business. That's all I'm looking at. So on Tuesday, I sat and I talked to the mayor, and I showed her that if you looked at your worst and average numbers, it shows that the garage doesn't cover its bond for at least 11 years. And those are the only numbers that I had. And what I said to her, in all honesty, when we were shown the perspective of what we were looking at a year or so ago, the garage was a little bit cheaper at $10 million, I believe, and the numbers were a lot rosier. They looked a lot better. I looked at those and said, wow, we're building a garage. I mean, this is a garage that's going to make some money. We're at 13 million now. When I looked at the worst and average numbers, it showed that the entire parking system was going to break even from 3 to 7 years. Now, if you really think about that, if the construction costs come in more than $13 million, well, now that problem gets a little bit lengthened, okay? And all the money that we generate in our downtown parking system is dedicated to fixing downtown. I love fixing downtown. I like the fact that we have money to fix traffic lights and to re-brick the bullnose. And again, I'm just looking at this financially. Tickham, I voted for it. I thought it was a good spot for it. Do we need a parking garage? I'd like to get the cars off the waterfront. But again, I'm just looking at it as a business. Currently, right now, we spend about $260,000 on average per year on downtown improvements. If you take the amount of money in this July report and you run the average amount you're using to the average to the amount that's in the kitty, and you could drain your kitty after only a few years. And again, it's just the math of it. If this garage is actually more expensive than this, you could drain the kitty a lot faster. I'm just looking after, number one, the downtown, supporting our businesses correctly. And two, I told the people of Ward 5 they will not pay a dime for this garage. This garage needs to be paid by the tourists. That's how this needs to go. My neighbors do not want to pay for this garage in any way, shape, or form. And I've heard that loud and clear from them. So after we met on Tuesday, I had suggested maybe the mayor should revise her financials, which she did. I asked her to get bids, which I found out was not legal to do. So you live, you learn. And then I asked her that if she really wanted to move forward with this, she should probably put it on the ballot. Because this would definitely be something that residents would want to have a say on. On Thursday night, I was working a trade show, and I got a new set of financials. And on the new financials that I got, we had all sorts of new things in here, like residents were going to be paying more for their stickers. Non-residents were going to be paying more for theirs. We were going to do a double-hour rate on special events. We were going to extend the time from 6 to 8. I looked at these things. I was a little worried about this. I said, first of all, I told my residents they wouldn't pay a dime for this. So that's a problem. That can't work. Special event parking, actually raising the hourly rate, I think that's a wonderful idea. If we have tourists coming in and they want to pay to park, I go to Gunkwit Beach, I pay to park, I pay $25 to pay at the beach. I'm not saying charge $25, I'm just saying I don't see why residents are paying anything. I think there are people that would pay. Extending the time from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. These are the things that drive me crazy because, before I was a city councilor, I was one of those folks like you, in the gallery watching. And I remember when we did paid parking. And, there was a fight over whether residents were going to pay anything because, let's face it, residents pay everything. 90% of our tax base in Newburyport is the residents, right? So what should they be paying? I don't know. I think we know the answer to that. So now we look at extending time from 6 to 8 p.m. Now, when we were having those discussions, the whole idea was we were going to cap it at 6 o'clock for the restaurants because we wanted to bring the dinner crowd in. So now the restaurants get the double whammy. They get to pay the meals tax and then they get to turn around and their restaurant eaters get to pay to park. So I think about that and I say, geez, are we going back on our word here with this? So, you know, I again went through this program on Saturday morning. I was a little disappointed because what I didn't know was this. And I'll be a little cynical here, but I think this is warranted. As I got this on Thursday night to review, I thought this was sort of a reply to Larry Junta from the mayor. What I didn't realize is this was being posted all over the city, posted all over social media, and that there was an email campaign actually being set up so I could get 150 emails over the last couple days. And my question to the people that emailed me was, did you see the financials? Have you actually looked at any of this? Do you care about downtown improvements? Now, I'll say this, you know, with a little bit of smile, because again, I've never been against a parking garage. I really never have been against a parking garage. I want to get the cars off the lot. I want a viable business. So you got the second plan because Larry Junta didn't like the first plan, okay? And then when I sent an email about as long as my arm on the problems with this plan, then you got one that actually has my name on it, Scenario for Councilor Junta. So this is the Larry Junta plan. And in this plan here, we're not doing anything to the residents. It's all X'd out. We're still talking about doing event, raising it for events. Great idea. And right now, when it talks about extending time from 6 to 8 p.m., it says it's an idea for the future. Now, I just have a couple of thoughts. On Saturday, when I sent an email to the mayor, my expectations were we were going to have a working relationship where we were going to be on the phone and we were going to hammer out this until we got to a spot we were going to build a garage. I didn't realize the plan was not to talk to me and have 150 residents send me emails. Poor plan. Very, very poor plan. Now, I think that things are looking a little better, but what I don't like is, the fact that there are a few magic numbers on here. I do think this garage could work. But I do see some things on here that do concern me. It's nothing worse than when you have a friend of your wife get contacted and you hear that that the mayor's campaign manager or somebody else that works for the mayor has asked them to send me an email or call me. Yeah, that's not fun. It's not fun at all. So I did get a firestorm of emails and phone calls, many for and many against. I think it didn't have, as we saw today, we had, I think, 28 people say that they were for it. We had 24 people say they were against it. Very interesting. I got similar results too. It was very interesting to see. I got quite a few heartfelt messages on the machine, in both directions. I like it. So at 3:30 today, I received new numbers. So I had a good 4.5 hours to digest them, even though I was at work. These numbers, all the unvetted stuff was. What's funny about the unvetted stuff? I'm on a roll. I'm just going to keep going if you'll let me. It's the unvetted stuff. What I love when they said about all the new ideas. My email to them back was, well, did you have any open meetings for all these new ideas? Have you talked to anybody? And of course the answer was no. This newer plan does have an increase of 27% in parking fees in the first year. If I nail 27% at work, I'm getting an award. In the second year shows a 42%. Which if I hit 42% next year, my boss is really going to give me an award. This plan all of a sudden now is 24 hours. That's a new idea. I don't know where that came from. So after receiving 3 different financial plans in 5 days and not receiving not all of my answers to all my questions, and I have all my questions if anybody wants a copy of it, one can understand how difficult this vote is. And I have to be honest with you, the difficulty of this vote is this, and then I'll stop talking. I ran for city council 6 years ago as an open water candidate. And when I knocked on doors, I told them, we are getting cars off of that waterfront and we are putting them in a garage. And I've been through this entire process being for the garage, except until I got this in July. And all I had was a few questions to make sure this garage works. And that's all I really want. And as I stand here today and we have public comment, there's one gentleman, and I'll be very nice, that asked if waterfront is a priority. I have been campaigning since 2011 on an open waterfront. There were many people that were in this room 2 hours ago that wanted to build on the waterfront. They were Union Studio people. They were the people that were telling me that we should be building on that. The same exact people. And then they're looking down at me like I'm holding up the process because I have a few questions. You know, it was said earlier today, there was... It was said earlier, public comment, there's been some minor changes to the financial plan. Really? I've gotten 3 plans in 5 days. How am I supposed to keep up? When am I going to get tomorrow? Another one? In process. We had someone that said, oh, we've been doing this forever. What happened? What's the process? If anybody's followed us through this process, it's been a terrible process. I'm a yes vote, and I found it hard to get to yes in the last month because this process has been so bad. You know, we had a purchase and sale that was negotiated behind closed doors for a year, and it was completely unacceptable when we got it. Completely unacceptable. We don't have an operational agreement. I wish we did. I want to know more about it. How are we going to run the garage? I'm very interested in that. I want this garage to work. I want it to make money. I want it to be an asset to the community. I'd like to know. And then, you know, then I have one more thing. I just have people that stated, you know, that we have open waterfront people against the garage. That's somebody who has not been following the process. I've always been for the garage. I voted for Tickham Street. I just want to make sure it works, and I'm sorry I have a few questions. I haven't said 2 words about this process in 2 years because I wanted to build a garage. But I have a few questions, and here we are. So yes, I do want to build a garage. I just wish the process wasn't so bad. It's a terrible process. And if I ran anything like this at my employer, I'd be fired. I'm done.
Councilor Corner?
Thank you. I was so astounded when I asked about the Mass DOT and FTA, I forgot to ask, and maybe this is to our auditor. Does bond counsel know that there's a lawsuit?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. I'm just going to go off on a short, very brief statement, and my colleague from Ward 5 probably hit the 3-point shot. Tonight, I've heard that we downsized the garage. I've heard numerous people who spoke of the open waterfront. Those included the mayor, NRA past and present members, chamber members that pushed hard for waterfront development on NRA land. Now those voices have completely changed, and it's all about the open waterfront. Let's not forget Newburyport Forward. All those individuals in one shape, or form stood up and touted the greatness of the Union Studio plan, and probably that Euro Disney one that was before that. When I look at this garage, I'm not anti-garage. The financials do not work. They don't work for one reason. That reason is that we have to step into our robust downtown parking program to cover the cost of the garage. If you were in business and you had a fast food joint in corner of the street and you were making money hand over fist, you wouldn't open one somewhere else that's not going to make money and siphon off money from the one that is making money. My concern is twofold: that the robust parking program downtown is going to get tapped out, and increases that the downtown is going to be neglected, and we're going to have to backfill with either more fees, residents more fees, or actually property taxes. Or we just stop doing improvements in the downtown. Has to be one or the other. I am confused about this $25 resident sticker. It's $10 for 2 years now. Nowhere in there does it suggest if that's $25 for a year, $25 for 2 years. There is a difference there in that process. I read in the John Burke study that, well, you know, it's typical that, you know, when you increase parking fees, you know, you're gonna have some bleed off because people find other places to park. That would have been very helpful for this council if that was given during his initial recommendations. But at this point, I am focused on the financials, and if we can get 50 spaces, if we can get 80 spaces, we can take cars off the waterfront. The commitment was for 100. Other than certain days of the year, all you have to do is walk down to the waterfront east lot of the NRA and realize that it's a totally underutilized lot. Now, there's just no way around that. It's an underutilized lot for most of the year. We have to look at this and look at what we can do for the residents of this city with this money, and what we can do for the downtown moving forward. But it does not have to be with something that is a money loser.
Council argument.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll just speak briefly because I'm the Ward 2 councilor, and you know, this was very painful for me because the abutters are mostly my constituents. So I disagree with some of the points that have been made recently about, you know, on the floor, about surface lots being just as good as a garage space. I don't think that's true. I think there is a qualitative difference, and John Burke thinks there'll be a revenue difference. I don't want to get into that. I just want to remind people, you know, where the March 2016 resolution came from is, you know, we had a whereas clause. What we were trying to do was, quote, ensure that the design and later possible construction, operation, and maintenance is successful. So we were all kind of pulling in the same direction. And so, you know, I don't need to repeat what Councilor from Ward 5 said, but the point is this was a very bad process and personally humiliating for me. But still, at the end of the day, the lost opportunity to do a garage here is not something that I can, out of spite, throw away. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to I feel we have, protected the residents. This is not going to devastate the area. I don't think that's true. I've done a lot of projects in my time for clients and for government. The aesthetics really do matter. This is an attractive garage, and that matters. And it's not too big. We made that decision last year on the 207. I don't want to reopen that. So my point is, if we're ever going to do a garage, as Jim Roy said, now is pretty much the time. It's just going to get more expensive. We're going to go over the same old ground again. I'm, again, humiliated by how this went, but I'm going to vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of comments, and I want to, basically echo what Councilor Eigenman said. This process has been difficult. We have been through the mill, and certainly neighbors have, and anybody who's been regularly attending these meetings. And yeah, the numbers have changed. They've been refined. We've pushed back, and so you have to. Definitely, nobody's been spoon-fed anything. We've had to ask a lot of questions. Thank you to everybody who's asked those. In terms of the, whether you call it the politicization of this or the advocacy by citizens, I mean, we've all gotten bombarded by emails that clearly are coming from the same place, whether it was for or against. Similar language, it was a cut and paste. And the bottom line is, whatever people's motivation, they can send us that stuff. Like Councilor Junta, I've been, trying to keep up with the emails. I haven't gotten back to everybody, but at least acknowledging them. And even good friends, it's taken me, a week and a half to get back because people ask very pointed questions. As fragmented as this process has been, I feel much more comfortable moving forward on this garage than I did a year ago, 2 years ago, or in 2010 when we voted for Titcomb as the site. I know we haven't answered everything, but we've sequenced it in a way where I think whether you're going to vote yes or no on the bond authorization, you should have enough information in front of you. And I too objected to the way this was presented in the last week about certain types of parking permits or usages being kind of projected as if the council had already decided on those. That's not the mayor's decision, that's the council's decision, and as ugly as this process has been to get us to a yes or no on a garage, when we get into the depths of the parking system, I hope John Burke is a good navigator and guide, because we are literally going to be up the creek without a paddle, because there's so many different ways that parking system could be structured. Mr. Matthews, who was the gentleman who works for a parking technology company earlier, said, this is done everywhere else in the country, and we are not charging market rates for parking. I think that's good when it's for residents. I think we do need to look at other ways to bring that revenue in, and that could be the $25, Algonquin, Maine, or wherever you were at, charging it seasonally, and we can make the revenue there. So I do think the revenue numbers work. And we've faced lots of controversies in Newburyport. I've only been here 17 years. However, I have been bred in Massachusetts, so I understand the fear of change that small towns or small cities like this face. But over the period since the 50s or so, we've looked at the park and ride, very controversial, and we weren't even paying for that. Commuter rail, very controversial. Back in the 30s, the Route 1 cut through that unfortunately destroyed a lot of beautiful housing along winter and summer. That needed to happen because otherwise you weren't going to be able to drive from Maine to Florida unless you were going to get backed up in downtown Newburyport. More recently, the River's Edge Boardwalk was controversial. The Mercantile Building was controversial. Somebody mentioned that they lived there. The high school reconstruction was challenging. And not everybody in Newburyport voted for the Senior Community Center or the Bresnahan or the Knock. Those were pretty tight votes. And now we think those were great projects, and we used a lot of state money to make that happen, but it was challenging. The library, all of the NRA preservation, you know, that wasn't George Lawler and Byron Matthews waving magic wands and Mayor Sullivan waving magic wands. That was tough. That was brutal. And probably a lot of people who were opposed to what they were doing later, you know, revisionist history, everybody, wow, what a great idea. That was HUD money. That was federal money. And that's basically, that's the linchpin for making this thing work. If not, we'd be dead in the water. Preserving the firehouse, Little River Trail. Every good thing we've done has had either process problems or has not been a slam dunk. This is by no means a slam dunk, but I definitely think it's the right thing to do for Newburyport residents, and that's why I'm going to vote yes on it.
Anyone else? Councilor Earls.
You have to excuse me. This has been, I'm not looking for sympathy at all. That's not the point. This has been very difficult. I actually have been sleeping over this because I know that I understand the process has been flawed. I understand people are against it, and I understand why. I'm not belittling that at all. I will lose friends over this, one way or the other, and it's sad. But paid parking. How many years ago I was told I'm going to kill the downtown if I vote for it. That'll be the end. It'll be like it was in the 60s. It didn't happen that way. You know, we took a calculated risk, and it's surviving, and we're getting money from it. Money we're talking about to build the garage to begin with. So if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be having this discussion at all. I have to take a little bit of umbrage with the fact that we want to run the city as a business. I've been in business for most of my career. For the past 7 years, I've been working in social service. Social service is different. The government is social service. We take the smallest amount of money we can and do the best with. What does a business do? They take in as much money as they can and give as little services and product as it's called profit. We're not here to make a profit. Do we go to the schools and say, a student is $12,000, where's our return? Our return isn't in money, it's a return as an educated student. Where's our return here? It may break even. That's what government should do, break even. What may we have? We may have an open waterfront for virtually nothing. Even if we don't make a profit, we can take the whole system together, the whole parking system together, and say it actually does break even. And that's all. That's best case. Let's break even. Then we look for the senior center and say, where's the revenue? Well, actually, we kind of do because we rent it out. But you know what? We're lucky. We're going to rent out the garage. We will get some income. I fought for paid parking, and I fought for the stickers to be $5 a year. When it was introduced and paid parking was going through, it was $50 a year for the residents. No, the whole point was to get other people's money and bring them into us, to get the tourists coming in and bringing it to us. It's succeeded. We're doing it well. Do I want the resident stickers to change? Of course not. I will vote against any change in that. But there's other options. And to take the lowest possible outcomes as reality is just as fair as taking the highest income. Let's take the average and talk about that. And it really does work. We won't make millions. We won't. But we're a social service organization. We're not here to make a profit.
Councilor Tonto.
This is a difficult process. It's a difficult process when there's a public policy decision where there is an asymmetrical benefit and loss. And for me, what's difficult about this is the marginal cost of this is borne more by the abutters than it is by other people in the city. Nevertheless, at the end of the day, and I believe that all 10 other councils in this room undertaking the same calculation. And that calculation is the benefit to the community versus the cost to the community of doing this. And depending upon the weight that we put on various factors, we come to different conclusions. But I'm just going to say all 10 of my colleagues here are making, and we've gone through committee after committee work where it's been a torturous process, but I respect all 10 councilors, regardless of how they vote. And I just want to get a little bit away from the detail on this, because it's the way I think about this. And I've said parts of this before. The reason people come to Newburyport is because A, All right, it's located in proximity to the ocean, and it has a wonderful waterfront. Secondly, because it has a large number of historic, residential, and commercial buildings. But thirdly, right, people want to live in Newburyport because it has a classic downtown. Newburyport, and I want to argue that to me, all right, the essence of Newburyport, in our DNA, the very fragment of this community, is that since its very inception, we have served as a regional business center. Since its inception, right? Now, early on, right, we were a transshipment point, right, where lumber and tar came down the river, and we shipped it elsewhere, and we imported rum and other things that were dispersed. 200 years ago, people came from the region to purchase dry goods, right? A little later, they came to the region to purchase factory-made clothing. The extreme changes, right? Today, we've changed once again, right? The service that we provide, reflecting changes all over the United States, not just in Newburyport, is that we provide a service. And because of that, we continue to attract people to this city. So we have the sets of amenities in terms of restaurants, in terms of public drinking establishments, right? In terms of live art, in terms of theater, right? In terms of live music, right? In terms of studios that offer music classes. All right, and there is social capital that is built around those, and that is an important third leg on the tripod that makes Newburyport what it is. And I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that going down. I'm worried that if we do not improve the Central Waterfront Park, right, that we lose that one leg. I'm worried that if we do not provide sufficient parking, that we're going to lose that lost leg. And now, I just said we would lose a set of amenities, but you know what? In the economic development chapter of the master plan currently before us, when we had discussions on this, what we noted is that, and this is why, right, there has been a fall, all right, in the share of taxes paid by businesses. All right? It's because residential, this is a desirable place to live, and it's become more and more desirable. And so therefore the assessed value of residential structures has gone up. That is not the case in the business and industrial and commercial sector. There is not that same demand to locate here. And if we want to increase the proportion of taxes, all right, that business and commercial and industrial pays, we need to continue to improve by widening the waterfront and providing parking and continuing. Now, we have to do it. And one other factor, not just for downtown, all right? When we looked at the business and industrial park, again, old line manufacturing, unless the president is more successful than I think he is going to be, President of the United States, that is, old line manufacturing is not coming back to the United States. When we looked at it, we said, look, what the high-end office, right, and highly educated workplaces want. They want to live someplace that is extremely nice, that has a set of amenities that Newburyport has. They want it when employees come in, they want to go bring them to eat downtown. They want to look at the river. They want to look at the waterfront, right? We saw at the Merson building that wants to expand. They independently had a market study done of Newburyport. And what did they conclude? They concluded professional services, business services, high-end. Why? Well, because the same thing that makes this a very attractive place to live is an attractive place for businesses to come, and we have to do everything we can to make that happen over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think building, it's my opinion, after looking through all this information, that my assessment is that the parking facility is a key element. finally, again, the difficulty is that you folks who are butters, there's asymmetrical pain. And the city has to do everything we can to mitigate that. Everything we can to mitigate it. And so I'll do that as well. Thank you.
Which we have to get done by 11? Is that a rule? It's 11, right?
It's 11. I mean, you can waive the rule, but...
I don't want to waive the rule. No. Councilor Connell?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, one of the joys of being on the city council is also the tyranny of sitting on the council, because the joy is to hear a variety of opinions based on a variety of experiences. The tyranny is that none of us gets everything we want ever, and it sometimes drives us to distraction. We've been sharing personal experiences, so I'll share a little bit today too. I left on vacation on Saturday morning up into Maine, and drove down 4 hours and a bit today to be here tonight. But I'm going to share some pain with Councilor Junta, and that is when I sat down at my desk, I had a couple of hours before coming to the meeting tonight, I opened my email and I had 157 emails between Saturday morning and now, most of which appear to have been related to this. So you're not alone. It's frustrating, but that's the way it is. And I'd far prefer hearing from a lot of people and hearing their support, but also their distress at what we're doing, because it means they're engaged, they care. But I want us to focus on something else about the financials that seems to be floating out there, because among those that I did open, I heard several of them, and they were very consistent. So I think someone has said to them this, that, oh, that money out there, that $6.5 million, that's still available at some future date. You don't have to act on it now. And so I come to my tale of two cities, because that represents about $1,300 for every household in the city of Newburyport. That's not chump change. That's important. Something to keep in mind. That's, by proxy, their contribution to this facility, except it's not coming out of their pockets. It's coming from other people's pockets elsewhere, because we happen to keep these grant proposals afloat. Now, my tale of two cities goes like this. In the 1980s, a group of far-sighted people in Newburyport said, gee, we have an old firehouse down in the center of the city that we don't need anymore as a firehouse. What could we do with it? And the idea was to turn it into a civic center, a performance center. Brilliant idea, wonderful idea. So they went and looked for other people's money, and lo and behold, we found a pot of money in Boston. It was the Convention and Civic Center Fund that was administered through the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, headed by a man named Frank Keefe. And the senator and the representative at that time worked very hard to convince, with local officials who kept on traipsing down to Boston, to convince them that this is shovel-ready. If you give us the money for this, I think the dollar figure was about $1.7 million at the time. Combined with local fundraising, we could make this thing a reality. Now, as luck would have it, the way funding cycles work, you get an appropriation, but the appropriation is just like a placeholder. You have to also have a spending plan, and each year, depending on which appropriations, it's a long laundry list of things that senators and representatives attach, usually as outside sections to the state budget. A spending plan each year is developed by the governor and his administration and finance folks. They pick out which ones are ready to go. They're going to get funding. And when you fall off that list, who knows when you're going to get to the top again. As luck would have it, we were competing with the city of Worcester, which was converting an old train facility into a civic center, the Union Station. We came in second. But as luck would also have it, that year, an aide from the senator's office and myself were sitting in the cafeteria talking to some of the other aides and staffers, and we got got a little bit of a little bit of news, some flavor of a conversation from some of the staff from Worcester. It's coming, it is. And what it told us was that Worcester was not ready to perform. That afternoon, the senator and the representatives went marching down to the governor, went to his administration and finance secretary and said, we're ready to go. Bottom line, we got the money, Worcester didn't. It was more than 10 years, 10 years, a decade before Worcester was able to somehow squeeze the money, get back on the list and get back on. If we don't act on this, and we throw that $1,300 per household away by dithering around here, by playing with our food, we run the risk of damaging the city's reputation for all spending agencies, state, federal, whatever you want to point to. And the damage to that reputation that we had built up over decades is very significant. We have a reputation for being a visionary community, able to make decisions and make things happen. I don't want the 11 people in this council to be those who turn our backs on that tradition and throw away the opportunity that sits right before us tonight. It's not perfect. The process has been lousy, but it's what we have. We can make this work.
I've been struggling for the last couple of days to figure out, and usually we get up and we say we're in support or we're not in support of this. I'm in support of the general concept of a garage, and frankly, at the outer edge of our downtown. I originally, when I came on the council, wanted to explore Green Street. It seemed the good spot for me, but that battle seemed to have been done, so I moved on from it. This is also not an outrageous or unusual amenity for a city to have, or even a large town to have. For personally, the people who have really come to me in favor of it, other than, the only people I think who really could care deeply about this are residents and business owners. I've been stunned by some people's apparent, excitement over a garage. It is a garage. That's all it is. It's to conveniently and in an organized manner to house cars. So it shouldn't be this divisive of an issue. I'm obviously in support of using $6.5 million to build this. Let me tell you, all the people that emailed me saying, I really know a lot about this garage, and then give me the same cut and paste email that you got from someone's campaign committee chairman, you don't know more about the garage than I do. I have deeply immersed myself in this process. I know more about parking garage from Kalamazoo to Portsmouth to than I ever cared about. Truthfully, if I had never run for city council, I would not have cared at all about a garage. I would have been like a lot of the people that I asked who are in my age group and subset, and looked at me and said, sure, build it, sounds great. I could have said one phrase and turned them into, no, that doesn't sound like such a good idea anymore. Don't build it. They're just not engaged in the parking garage as much as some people seem to be. But $6.5 million is a real opportunity, and I've been consistent throughout on that. The other thing I'm really for is in support of is getting cars off the waterfront. That's a no-brainer. I have noticed that the people who didn't always want a completely open waterfront, now that's what they're touting as the greatest thing for this, is that we're going to get cars off the waterfront. I'm going to say the devil's in the details for this as well. There is no agreement yet. Some councilors on this, some councilors on the ad hoc commission did an incredible amount of work to get an agreement, and that agreement's being renegotiated right at this moment. So the devil is in the details. The second thing is, I would love to have visitors, and visitors to our city, visitors to our restaurants, visitors to Waterfront West. In an abstract, totally abstract conversation, the greatest zoning in Massachusetts basically says every resident has to have 2 parking spaces. That's the best you're gonna get. The worst, you got like 1 or 2 shared by 3. I mean, just ridiculous things. But the best is 2. In my driveway, almost every day is at least 4 cars. So people are gonna come. It's not connected to Waterfront West now that we have done our work on the P&S, but it's not connected to Waterfront West, but it's gonna benefit from Waterfront West. There are going to be people that go visit their parents who need a place to park, and they're going to park there. And there is nothing wrong with that. If we were building an old folks home there, and we were putting in and Larry and I said, let's go open up a store that caters to the needs of older people, that would be a brilliant business plan on our part. So it's not like we're building, a water slide in Antarctica. It is not an unusual concept, and it is in a good place. What I'm not in support of is marginalizing and vilifying anybody who propose. I can't believe somebody cut somebody off in public comment today. That was unbelievably rude. Unbelievably rude. People, this is a democracy. People can ask questions. They can have different opinions. As the counselor from Ward 4 said, you can all be sane and rational and come to different conclusions on this. It's a garage. There's no absolute truth here. So we need to learn how to better negotiate and talk about these things. And I can tell you, the emails got better as this message got out when I sent emails back to people, so I thank everybody for that. But at the beginning, the emails were so insulting, as if I have never gone to a meeting on the garage. I have never seen any of the people that came here, 95% of them. And the other 5%, I've seen them either dedicated people that have been here to all of them, or in the last couple of months as the thing is heated up. And I don't hold that against anybody. I absolutely don't. I would be fine to waive the rules and move to waive the rules so that we can go past 11 o'clock, because I put up with a lot of stuff, and I'm going to say what I have to say.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So we have got to find a way. I will tell you, anybody in this city who wants to go and meet the abutters, they are the nicest people in the entire world. After I voted for design funds to put a 2.5-story garage in their backyard, I met Chris and Eileen Ferriola in the Mission Oak Grill, and Chris was kind of glowering at me, and I'm like, oh, Jesus. And he finally motioned me down there. I got up the courage to go down there, and I said, Chris, how you doing? And he goes, look, if you ever need anything in your life, please come contact me. If you're going to run for higher office, I want to help you, because you made me feel like I could be heard again. And you made me feel like I was a part of this process again. That's why we all do this, folks, and that's why it's important to keep our ears open and not marginalize and vilify. Even calling somebody a vocal minority is marginalizing them. Who cares if they're vocal and they're a minority? We should be striving in projects of a city of 17,300 people. We should be striving on projects to get as much public buy-in as possible, make people as happy as possible with everything we do. And we don't do that. So that's the second thing that I am not happy with, is poor plan. Oh, by the way, part of the marginalizing, I hear people get up in public comment and say some counselors getting wobbly kneed. What else did they say? Weak in the knees and wobbly. Hey, I've been an athlete all my life, competed against much bigger people, played rugby till I was 36 years old. Anybody thinks I'm getting wobbly over this, you're insane, okay? This is not scaring me. Large people contact me, you're not scaring me, I'm not getting wobbly. I'm actually looking out for you to make sure that this project is planned properly, it has the right things to make it successful, and that we've thought about everything. And this project has not been planned or presented well. And what that has done is created legitimate opening for opposition. There are questions about this garage and its operation, as seen by the flurry of things that we've gotten in the last 3 or 4 days. I'm going to quote my friend, the counselor from Ward 1. That's insane. It makes me feel like I'm in the twilight zone, that I'm the only one that says, how can this be happening 3 days before the project is supposed to be voted on? The $6.5 million makes me say I have to vote for this, and the process, good process yields good results. And we have not had good process, and we are dealing with things that are estimates and guesstimates. It's the process that makes me the most uncertain about this. And we need to find a better way. And by the way, folks, what else could we as a council do? We passed a resolution that I told people at the time was the path to yes. The find the way to yes was our resolution. 11-0, that resolution passed. 11-0. We asked for about 9 things. We got maybe 5 of them, 4 of them. 2 of the things that we asked for were parking recommendations from the parking clerk consultant and the Parking Advisory Commission on how to make this garage work. We talk about making it work. There are things that need to be done. I already knew what they were because I questioned the parking consultant in like February about it. We need to restrict parking from Dove to Fair. We need to increase the residential permit parking. We need to take away, people with a residential permit parking can't park in the garage. When I tell people that, they're like, really? I can't park in the garage? No, because you're only paying $5 a year for it. It would kill us if you parked in that garage. The increase of the hours from 6 to 8. So, I mean, there are lots of things. That document I got on Thursday was actually the most honest document I've gotten in months. I just wish I had gotten it months ago like I asked for in my resolution, because it would have made the decision to say yes easier, and it would have taken away opposition because people would have said, okay, I feel more comfortable with this process. And we didn't get it. Whether it was hubris or it was inattention or mismanagement, I don't care. It didn't get done. Somebody said to us, we all should be true leaders and visionaries. First of all, that's not our role. Our job as city councilors is to be a check on the mayor's office. The mayor's office initiates operations and initiate projects, and we vet them. And then we vet them through our residents, or we vet them through in our ward, or we vet them through the entire citizenry if we're councils at large, but we vet them. We are not supposed to be visionaries. I wholeheartedly disagree with that characterization of us. We're not supposed to be visionaries. But true leaders don't let hubris get in the way and say, you're not allowed as a city council to give me instructions in a resolution. True leaders swallow that. And then they get what they need because they know it's going to get them to where they want to be. And they bring in as many people as they can to the project. They don't yell at people in the middle of the auditorium when the person asks one too many questions. They don't get into an argument with them. They try to bring in as many people as possible. They don't stamp their foot at a sitting councilor who is asking a question in a council meeting. That's what true leadership is. Now, I have expressed concerns because we have finite funds. I agree, this garage doesn't have to make money. But we have finite funds, and right now, roughly, we have about $300,000 in paid parking revenue that is used. It's used to make improvements downtown. So I was concerned at what cost the waterfront, at what cost to take those cars off the garage. But I also agree with my at-large counselor that if you can say the lowest is a possibility, the highest is a possibility as well. I personally think the garage can work. I just want that information to make it work, to get out there. So I've taken on myself, everybody who emailed me, I emailed them back and I said, these are the things, here are my concerns, and these are the things that are going to be done to get this working. For the most part, they all came back to me and said, okay. So whether that's really how they're going to feel when it comes out, when I am not necessarily ambivalent about a project, but when there's pros and cons on both sides, I feel I have to go with the 150 or so people I've spoken to, maybe more, and emailed with and heard from. But remember these conversations and remember these statements and remember what has to be done. There's going to be a change downtown. It's going to be change how you can park down there and where you can park down there, and just be careful what you wish for. Thank you.
Motion to limit debate after all the councilors have spoken.
What's that?
Motion to limit debate
Okay.
after all councilors have spoken.
Second.
So I had a barrage of questions, but I never said how I feel or what I think. A couple thoughts. First of all, this is the end of a process. It's not the beginning. So while I guess it's customary tonight to say I take offense to things and then to say I'm going to vote for it anyways, I want to take great offense to the fact that somehow the $6.5 million is being decided tonight. That's been in the hopper for a while. And having followed a good process, which I now gather most people apparently think, as I do, the process went poorly, this is the end result of that process. This isn't a one-night decision. This isn't from last Thursday decision. This has been happening for a long time. And I am offended to be asked to vote tonight because you just heard we're not going to be ready to go to bid until 10/6, but the rush is on. We got to do it. We're going to turn our back on the state and all of those different things. We have no operational agreement with the RTA, et cetera. I have been told that those things are not a big deal. So be it. That's my frustration with how I got here tonight. So I share the frustration with the process that the other councilors have. But I do come to a different conclusion. I have no idea how we can take the same process we just followed for the past 18 months and expect it to produce a good result in the next 18 months. It's completely beyond me. I do have to take offense, of course, to a couple statements by some of my colleagues. The Ward 2 councilor who thinks that it would be only out of spite to say no minimizes how difficult this decision is to know about the waterfront, to know about the $6.5 million, and just to think that spite would be a high enough bar for somebody like me who has spent so much time on this project, let alone all the people that have come before me, that would be good enough. Next thing is, I think generally I'm accused of being insanely focused on the finances, maybe hyper-focused. The reason I'm so intense on the numbers is because I understand that the numbers are going to drive what we have to do in the future. They're not discrete things. It's not like you just say, oh, well, there's a loss, no big deal. And so to the at-large councilor who said, I'll be opposed to any rate increases for residents, I would respectfully say that that's not a realistic view of this thing. This is not how this is going to go. This is why I have spent so much of my own time doing my own projections, reviewing projections provided by the director. It's very true. Those changes may be acceptable to residents, to business owners. They may not. But tonight, we're basically saying, look, it's fine, we'll make it work, and we're going to have to ram it down everybody's throat if it doesn't work, because these are the realities of the finances. It doesn't have to necessarily make money, but to correct the at-large councilor, the current profits from FY17 were $446,000 from our parking system. Pretty good money. We sweated pretty hard last year to make some cuts to the budget. We got 78 grand. So anybody who sits around and says, oh yeah, 446 grand, well, we'll make that up, I don't know from where. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, there's also an implication with we'll make it work that implies that the market is limitless. That Newburyport is so successful that there are no limits to what we can charge. We can charge anything we want, and it will work out fine, and the revenues will follow to come. I can't argue anymore about what the actual numbers are. The parking clerk provides me numbers. I can tell you that city meter revenue was up 43% from last year. The finance director is correct. We had a month and 3 days that were at the dollar rate. I did the calculation that way too. It's about 50% increase. It's not a 15 or 20% haircut. It was terrible. The numbers were terrible. And so what we have to do in order to make the garage work is change the business model downtown entirely, change it all. The resident passes have to go. They may not go now, they may not go next year, you might go to $25. I noticed the finance director chopped in half the number we sell. That's a great way to do attrition, to wear them out. So you go up to 25, you sell half, then you go up to 35, you sell a third of that, and then before you know it, you can phase out the parking passes, because John Burke, if he were here, would say free parking is the enemy of paid parking, period. So that formula has to change. So now we get to the waterfront. That's a big problem for me. I mean, I've spent a lot of my time in the past 18 months on the ad hoc, only now to watch it. Who knows what'll come out next month? I guess we'll wait and see what happens. A lot of sweat and blood, and my time is nothing compared to the generations before that have spent decades doing this. So I'm not even that high. The problem with changing the downtown business formula is you're changing the formula from residents to tourists. So it may end up being a Pyrrhic victory, where we do end up maybe somehow, if we ever have waterfront monies, we could build a waterfront park, but it won't be for residents anymore. It'll be for people who are visiting. It'll be for people who live in potentially new developments around. It'll be for those folks to enjoy, and on occasion for residents to enjoy on their own expense. So that's why my defense of burying my head in the numbers for a year and a half. Last year, the numbers were very clear. We could support the garage and the bond and the design and the build within the $1 increase if it panned out. It didn't, and costs have gone up. So last year, when we voted on the design, I was ready to vote no. I was ready to jump off the ship. Then I said, I'm not really, this doesn't look good initially, but there are a lot of questions to be answered. The answer at the time was, let's do this resolution, and once we have this resolution, it should be the easiest vote in the world next year to vote to bond the garage, because all the questions will be answered sufficiently and there'll be no problems, it'll be easy. So I stayed on the ship. And then the purchase and sale came down, which was a complete piece of garbage. I opined on that several weeks ago, and I said I wouldn't be bullied anymore about the funding. So I was ready to jump off the ship again there too, but two councilors in particular said, no, we need to do the best we can here, and it is in the city's best interest to buy the land. And I agreed, and I worked again on that. This is where I get off the ship. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I can't do what others are supposed to do. I can't go on assumptions, guesses, facts, and not know what the reality is going to be. I can't trust a process that has gone so poorly for 18 months to go well in the next 18 months. I want this garage to be a success because it's all of our successes, but I can't say the same things that my colleagues are saying here and come to the same conclusion. I simply cannot. And for that, I mean, like everybody else, I got a million emails, and it's unfortunate because this should have been an easy decision. This should have been the end of a long road, pull the car in the spot, call it a day, everybody goes home. Those are my thoughts, and I'll be voting no tonight, and I guess we'll see what happens.
What's the question? There's a motion to limit debate.
Motion to limit debate was seconded but not voted on.
Okay, roll call on limiting debate.
There's a motion to limit debate made by Councilor Eigenman that was seconded by someone. Thank you, Jim. Motion to limit debate, which I take you qualified to mean only one councilor had one chance to speak.
That's right.
Councilor Tantar.
No.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
No.
Councilor Cameron.
So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little foggy here. This is on a motion to...
This is a motion to limit debate. To mean each councilor has one chance to speak. That's a yes. Councilor Connell?
No.
Councilor Cronin?
Yes.
Councilor Devlin?
No.
Councilor Earls?
No.
Councilor Eigenman?
Yes.
Councilor Genta?
Yes.
Council President O'Brien?
Yes.
Needs 2/3. Motion fails.
Now move the question.
Well, I have the floor, Mr. President. Who seconded the motion to approve as amended? Someone over here. Thank you.
So want to take a vote on the, as amended, I guess.
Move the question.
I think everyone's talked, everyone's had a chance.
Motion to approve as amended. Ready to do a roll call, Mr. President?
Yes, I guess so.
Okay.
It's called principle. It's principle.
You won your last.
Feel somebody else has something less
Okay.
to say, go for it.
Just point of order, what are we voting on here?
We're voting on the bond order.
The bond order, not the amendment.
We already voted on the amendment.
Bond order as amended.
As amended.
Let me read. Motion to approve as amended the bond order. Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
No.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
No.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Councilor Junta.
Yes.
Council President O'Brien.
No.
Needing 8, receiving 8, motion approved as amended passes.
License and permit?
Yes. Yes, sir. Motion to remove Communication 97, the In-Street Artisans Market Show.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Secretary, that's good.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. President. The information that's in the packet came a little bit wanting for insurance and other sign-offs. In communication with the applicant, his feeling was, give me the go-ahead through council and I'll take it through for approvals, and working with the clerk, our trust is, and we'll, excuse me, I'm better off in the morning with a cup of coffee.
That's a plug.
Yeah, exactly. The License and Permits Committee approved with the condition that the application be completed in full and the insurance be provided, and working with the clerk. We think that this is a good thing, and we would ask for your a vote, if you will. I hope that made any sense. Thank you.
Sorry, is that September 2nd for the date?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can answer that. Yeah. He's well aware of the crunch in time. He's done it before. He's been in contact with both me and the clerk. He'll pull it together.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nothing else.
Thank you. Go Ned.
Our next meeting is September 5th at the high school, room 118 at 5:30, if anybody wants to join us.
Neighborhood City Services?
Nothing tonight.
Planning and Development?
Mr. President, motion to remove ordinance number 9, zoning amendment Ag Con District.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. President, motion to amend. In the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th column over, percentage lot coverage, it was the recommendation of the planning board, which we also adopted in committee, that be changed from 1% to 3%.
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead. Anything else?
Motion to approve is amended.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
We have to do roll call,
Do
or
you need a
no?
roll call on zoning, Mr. Clerk?
Motion approved as amended, ordinance number 9. Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede. Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Councilor Junta.
Yes.
Council President O'Brien.
Anything else?
No.
Public safety?
Yes, Mr. President. Motion to remove Communication 88.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
President, this came out of Committee 3, nothing. We had 2 caveats. This is approximately a 3,000-person road race, so it's rather large, that we would ask the clerk to remind the applicant that amplified music and loudspeakers are not allowed on Sundays before 9 o'clock. And that an additional security detail from the Newburyport Police be assigned to the park lunch, as they've had problems over the past several years with parking and having to tow cars and whatnot, and we want to avoid that.
In committee, we agreed that was, we were going to amend it to those. So if that's an amendment, I second it.
Yeah, those are amendments to, conditions, we should say.
Second.
If I might, just for clarification. So those two subject twos were, one, an additional detail to the park lunch, and two, no loud music or
No,
amplification.
to just remind them of the city ordinance on,
Which is it 9 a.m.?
I think it's 9 a.m. on Saturdays, but you can double check.
I mean, you could set it as a condition. Okay. As a condition, it's no loud music before 9 a.m.
Right.
So as amended, vote on the amendment, I guess, the two amendments you made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead. As amended?
Yeah. As amended.
I was going to say, I'm going to vote no on this for the simple reason, a lot of this is in Ward 5 and 6, and I got plenty of calls on this road race. People couldn't get out to Turkey Road to go to church, so I'll be voting no, just to let people know. That's why I'm voting no. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Can the city council ask the clerk to call the director and try to tell him to make a little better effort on that?
If you got 4,000 runners running down Turkey Road, it's not going to help, unfortunately. But yeah, you can.
Appreciate it on my behalf if you would ask him to try, and that new regs go in effect January 1, so get it together.
Motion to remove communication 89.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve?
Second.
89?
Society.
I thought
Any discussion?
receiving five.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I take that back. That was, I take that back. It's receiving file, motion to receive and file.
Second.
And just as a point of explanation, they said that they couldn't pull it off, so they asked to withdraw it.
Receive and file, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead. Anything else?
Yeah. Motion to remove 94 Ember Plinko event.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Oh, excuse me. This was another one that we amended in committee, so the amendment would be subject to building commissioner inspection and approval.
Of the actual physical thing?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay.
Of the connection, you mean?
Yeah, and if I may, this is a 16-foot piece of wood that is on public property going up. Do you have a picture of it somewhere in your? Yes, I don't know if everybody knows they do, but there's a picture of it somewhere.
The late file.
And our fear in public safety was that we want to make sure it's secure, that it doesn't tumble on passers-by or cars or whatever. Came out of committee 3-0 with that approval, with that amendment.
Who made the motion to approve?
What day is it? What day of the week is this?
It's going to be on 9/2.
Will the building inspector be available on that day, which sounds like a Saturday?
He can check it out the day before. It's subject to his approval. If he can't do it, then we can't do it.
Okay.
It's September 9th now, based on the late file.
They changed the date.
Late file, I'm sorry.
Saturday.
And it's just for one day, right?
Correct.
Plinko.
Again, who made the motion to approve? Who seconded?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
You don't like Plinko?
Anything else?
There are a lot of unanswered questions. That's grotesque. In town? You kidding me?
Yes, Mr. President, motion to remove Order 43, which was a late file.
Also would like to remove it from planning and development. It was joint referral.
It's not in the packet.
Oh.
All in favor?
Okay, motion to waive the rules and act on this because it's not in the packet.
Who's on our
I'm told
desks?
that's a rule.
Who's
I
on
didn't
our
know that's a
desks?
rule.
I'm gonna be extra careful
Oh.
with that.
I'll second that waive the rules.
Okay.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, very briefly, it's late at night. So we had held on to this. This is an absolutely necessary project, the West End Sewer Access Road project, because we had questions in committee on what we were paying and were we overpaying and the budget and all that. They were all satisfactorily answered. In some, we feel we're paying a fair price for something that is vital, and I hope you support it.
Further discussion? Roll call?
It's an order of taking, we should do a roll call. This is a motion to approve order number 43, Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Zede.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Devlin.
Yes.
Councilor Earls.
Yes.
Councilor Agaman.
Yes.
Councilor Jinta.
Yes.
Council President O'Brien.
Yes. Anything else?
Nothing further, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Order, because I may have lost my mind. What, did we take Order 50 off the table, which was, we did not?
We did not.
Can I take it off the table now?
You want to kill it?
I move to take Order 50 off the table.
Second.
I move that we receive and file.
Second.
Yeah,
All in
that's
favor
true.
of taking off the table? Aye. All in favor of receiving file?
Aye.
Order 50 from what committee?
Thank you.
What committee? Anything for the good of the order? It's too late for that, I think. Motion to adjourn.
I don't know. Budget and Finance.
Aye.
Read more emails.